particular, the showers are going to be pretty frequent. Some hail, some thunder possible here and continuing as we go through the day. Even some sleet or snow perhaps over the highest peaks of the Scottish mountains. Further east, over eastern parts of Scotland, northeast England, a mostly dry picture here. A few showery outbreaks for Northern Ireland, and then across central, southern parts of England and Wales, we are going to have a front pushing its way southwards as we go through the day. It's not bringing a huge amount of rain, but it will bring some showery bursts. Eventually, that is going to clear away, with things turning a bit drier and perhaps even a bit sunnier across much of England and Wales as we go through tomorrow afternoon. Even some sunny spells developing across parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland, but still quite a few showers here, and all the time these could bring some hail and some thunder. Temperatures are looking similar to today. It is going to be a bit blustery at times and feeling a bit fresh for early June. As we go through tomorrow evening, we are going to see more showery rain across parts of Scotland, but drier further south, and with more clear skies. Again, it could be another chilly, perhaps even fresh start on Sunday morning. More showery rain to come as we go through the end of the weekend and into the beginning of next week. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We've got summer sewn up with an incredible trio of treats, and you could win them. First, there's a fabulous £15,000 in tax-free cash to ensure this summer is special. What would you spend that on? Next, you'll also receive the latest iPhone 15 and a set of Apple AirPods. And finally, £500 to spend at your favourite UK attraction. Fun in the sun could be on us. For a chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. GB News, Britain's election channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes,
she could have said Storm. You made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
A very good afternoon to you and a happy Friday. It's 3 p.m. Welcome to the Martin Daubney Show on GB News, broadcasting live from the heart of Westminster all across the UK. On today's show, there's been a huge backlash against Rishi Sunak after he decided to leave D-Day commemorations in Normandy yesterday to attend a TV interview instead. The Prime Minister's apologised, but is this Rishi Sunak's darkest hour? Next, Greek police are scouring the island of Symi in a desperate search for Michael Mosley. Sniffer dogs, drones and helicopters have been deployed to locate the much-loved TV doctor who disappeared on a walk 2 days ago. We'll have the very latest on that search. And today, 27 EU member states take to the polls in what Brussels is calling the last chance to save democracy. But with a massive swing to the right in Netherlands and many others set surely to follow, is the writing on the wall for the European Union. And Just Stop Oil have been at it again. This time they targeted the wedding of a billionaire who had Prince William as one of his ushers. Never mind Just Stop Oil, this is Just Stop the Royals. And that's all on the show between now and 6 o'clock. Welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company. Now, they say politics is just a soap opera. Well, here's one for you, because is the former Neighbours star Holly Valance about to dramatically enter the political realm and stand for the Reform Party, Nigel Farage's Reform Party? Well, we'll have the inside story on that at 4 p.m, because that's the deadline for when the papers are going to be submitted for the final candidates for this general election. Could that be a plot twist that nobody saw coming? Get in touch. Do you think Rishi Sunak has had an absolute nightmare leaving the D-Day celebrations early, or is he a busy guy? Is he allowed to do it? Let me know your thoughts. That's sure to dominate the show. Shortly I'm going to speak to Andrea Leadsom to get her opinion. Is this the biggest gaffe in Rishi Sunak's political career? Get in touch, gbnews.com/your say. But before all of that, it's your headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you. The top stories this afternoon. The Prime Minister has apologised for leaving a ceremony marking the 80th anniversary of D-Day so that he could carry out an interview on television. Rishi Sunak said it was a mistake not to stay in France longer after he missed the major gathering attended by world leaders, including US President Joe Biden. Foreign Secretary Lord Cameron was also present, and the Prime Minister had attended 2 previous memorial events. Downing Street is denying reports that he had considered missing the D-Day commemorations altogether. The Prime Minister, though, insists he stuck to the itinerary laid out before him ahead of the event.
Reflection, that was a mistake and I apologise. I think it's important, though, given the enormity of the sacrifice made, that we don't politicise this. The focus should rightly be on the veterans who gave so much. I had the honour and privilege of speaking to many of them and their families, hearing their stories, expressing my gratitude personally to them. But I'm someone who will always admit when I've made a mistake. That's what you'll always get from me.
Veterans Minister Johnny Mercer says it doesn't reflect Rishi Sunak's attitude towards those who've served their country.
I think he's done the right thing to apologise, right? It is a mistake. It shouldn't have happened. But I do think, veterans are not stupid, and it needs to be born in the kind of wider context of how we actually treat veterans in this country. Is this a fair reflection of how Rishi Sunak treats veterans? I can categorically say it's not, because actually I've spent the hours with him and his wife, who have been deeply committed to this over many years. Undoubtedly, veterans will feel pretty raw over this, and I don't dispute that, and I totally understand. And personally, it's a bit crushing, yes, but it is what it is, and it's happened, and he's apologised and he's made a mistake, and it is not reflective of his wider work on veterans and the support he's given me to completely transform what it feels like to be a veteran in this country today.
Rishi Sunak has denied lying over claims that a Labour government would raise taxes by £2,000 per household. The Prime Minister said during a televised debate that the figure had been checked by independent Treasury officials. But the Treasury's Permanent Secretary has suggested the figure isn't a full representation of its estimates. Both the Conservatives and Labour have pledged not to increase income tax, national insurance or VAT. Labour is pledging to introduce a series of new schemes aimed at boosting the availability of mortgages for first-time buyers. Among the plans would be an expansion of the mortgage guarantee, meaning that if a bank repossesses a first-time buyer's house, the government would compensate some of its losses. The Conservative Party has also unveiled its own measures, including a pledge not to raise stamp duty.
This is a game changer. If you're a young couple and you want to have the security of a roof, your own roof over your head, this is a game changer, because many of those people, let's say a young couple, both on a reasonable wage, will be paying a fortune in rent, and because of that they can't afford to save for a deposit. And if you don't have a parent who can help you out, that means you're never going to get on the housing ladder.
The Liberal Democrats are setting out their plans to make parental leave more flexible, including what they call a dad month. On the election trail today, Sir Ed Davey's promising to double statutory maternity pay and encourage more fathers to take time off work. The Conservatives say they'll cut taxes for thousands of families. However, Lib Dem spokesperson for education, children and young people, Munira Wilson, says families need more choice and flexibility.
There's lots of parents up and down the country, both mums and dads, who'd love to take more time off work in those early months for their children's first smile, first steps, first words, but just simply can't afford to do so because statutory pay at the moment is less than half the minimum wage if you were working full time. So we'd double statutory maternity and shared parental pay. We'd also increase paternity pay to 90% of earnings with a cap, but also we would look to increase paternity leave pay, which is very low at the moment, again to 90% of earnings.
Sniffer dogs and divers have joined the search for TV doctor Michael Mosley after he went missing whilst on holiday on the Greek island of Symi. The presenter, who's known for appearing on programmes like The One Show and the podcast Just One Thing, hasn't been seen since Wednesday. It's understood he left his phone where he was staying. Local police paused the operation late last night, but it continued this morning with reinforcements. Police and firefighters have also used drones to scan the island, which is about 25 miles north of Rhodes. And thousands of people lined the streets of Chester for the wedding of the Duke of Westminster, where the Prince of Wales acted as an usher. Bride Olivia Henson was wed to billionaire aristocrat Hugh Grosvenor. They waved to media and the public as they left the cathedral after the wedding. And thousands of people, as I say, watched them as they lined the streets. There was, though, a brief unrest when two women were removed from the crowd by police after orange smoke was spewed from a vessel, with one heard shouting, "Just stop oil." And also the Duke of Sussex was not there after it was mutually agreed he would not attend amid a long-running rift with his brother. For the latest stories, sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts. Now back to Martin.
Thank you, Tatiana. Now, only one place to start, the massive story of Rishi Sunak, who's apologised after leaving a D-Day ceremony early yesterday to record a TV interview. I'm putting this to you. Is this the Prime Minister's darkest hour? Well, the Veterans Minister, Johnny Mercer, said Mr Sunak had made a significant mistake. And here's what the Prime Minister had to say earlier.
What were you thinking? Over the past 2 days, I've participated in a number of events in Portsmouth and France to honour those who risked their lives to defend our freedom and our values 80 years ago. The itinerary for these events was set weeks ago, before the start of the general election campaign, and having participated in all the British events with British veterans, I returned home before the International Leaders event later in the day. On reflection, that was a mistake, and I apologise. I think it's important, though, given the enormity of the sacrifice made, that we don't politicise this. The focus should rightly be on the veterans who gave so much. I had the honour and privilege of speaking to many of them and their families, hearing their stories, expressing my gratitude personally to them. But I'm someone who will always admit when I've made a mistake. That's what you'll always get from me.
Well, Sir Keir Starmer said Rishi Sunak will have to answer for his own actions.
I was able to say thank you to them on behalf of the Labour Party, also on behalf of my children who live freely because of their actions and the actions of their fallen comrades. That was really humbling. It was really important to me. It was a privilege to be there, and Rishi Sunak will have to answer for his choice. For me, there was only one choice, which was to be there, to pay my respects, to say thank you, and to have the opportunity to speak to those veterans.
Well, what an astonishing sense of self-harm this has been. I'm joined in the studio by our political editor, Chris Hope, in the studio. Chris, people are still struggling to get their heads around the sheer magnitude of this gaffe. If it was in the diary, somebody should have changed it. If he knew about it, it should have been altered. How, in the name of God, could Rishi Sunak not have understood that leaving this event earlier would have caused this huge political earthquake?
It is staggering. It's an act of self-harm to him and his party. It's hard to understand it. They announced plans for a Veterans Act 2 days ago, a guaranteed right to, I think, cheaper rail travel and the like, to show the party's respect, the government's respect, correctly, for veterans. And then he does this. Yes, he was there for the British part of the celebration, so commemorations, forgive me, but then he wasn't there for the international part when he would have met with Zelensky. Who was the person who looked prime ministerial in those images yesterday? Keir Starmer.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, David Cameron stood in, but Keir Starmer looked like he was walking the walk as a future Prime Minister. Where this leaves them, I don't know. Some are saying it could accelerate polling crossover.
Yes.
So Reform UK starts to beat the Tories in the polls. People are furious. You heard from Sir Keir Starmer there. I felt he was being quite generous to the Prime Minister. He said simply he made a choice yesterday about what he would do as leader, and as somebody who wants to be Prime Minister, I knew I should be there. ... He didn't really ladle on, and he could have done that. That's quite classy by Keir Starmer. Nigel Farage calling it a Gillian Duffy moment. Do you remember that Gordon Brown moment? He described Gillian Duffy, the voter, as a bigoted woman for her concerns about migration.
A Gerald Ratner moment.
Well, yes, that's in business, but in politics terms, during an election campaign when it really matters, this is a Gillian Duffy moment. Admiral Lord West, Labour peer, saying it's extraordinary, very strange, what a cock-up. The defence is he said sorry from both Chris Philp, a minister, and Lord Cameron, the Foreign Secretary. But already we are seeing serious problems here. This lunchtime, the Daily Telegraph is revealing, Charles Hymas there, that Ian Aitchison, who is the government's extremism advisor, he's resigned as a Tory MP. I've got his letter here. Can I read part of it to you? It is brutal. He says I assume he's written to the party, he says, if you're all interested in knowing why, you may want to watch yesterday's news coverage to understand the depth of feeling around this country about the Prime Minister shunning his duty to our remaining veterans in Normandy, to scuttle back to London to do a news piece defending an indefensible tax claim. Electioneering ahead of a solemn commemoration of those who gave so much for their freedoms we enjoy is simply unforgivable. He says it was either an act of colossal stupidity or cynical calculation. Either way, it revealed to me that while I still embrace a Tory philosophy, I am no longer willing to have it outsourced to a bunch of mendacious, incompetent, disreputable clowns.
Wow.
Country before party, always. Yours sincerely, Ian Aitchison. That is absolutely withering, and that is somebody who knows Michael Gove, knows senior Tories, and has had enough and has quit the party.
And Chris, just so viewers out there get some context, Ian Aitchison is an extreme man of competence, and he's got huge credibility. He's been on the show before.
Yeah.
He's done a huge amount of work into radicalisation in prisons, into counter-terrorism. He's a very brave voice about Islamism in the country. He's a man who's just absolutely just gone nuclear on this.
Clowns, you know, let's repeat that. A bunch of... somehow this Tory philosophy, he says, has been outsourced to a bunch of mendacious, incompetent, disreputable clowns. Country before party, always. This is the beginning, I think. I just wonder where this will end. Now, tonight we're looking into this 7-way TV debate on BBC primetime.
OK, so here's
TV.
a question for you. Do you think there's some politics going on here? Let's just think ahead, Chris, because I know your mind's whirring, your atoms are vibrating on this. Penny Mordaunt is the representative of the Conservative Party tonight. Now, we know she's good at wielding swords. We know...
Because of the coronation.
Because of the coronation. We know that her seat is under fire. We know that Portsmouth, where she is the home of the Royal Navy, the home of armed forces. Might that sword fall tonight?
She is also a naval reservist. She is someone who wears her interest and support for our defence industry on her sleeve. Correct. She's a former MP for Portsmouth North before Parliament was dissolved. Yeah. She's now a candidate in the area. She lives in the area. She is up against 6 other opposition spokesmen, one of whom is Nigel Farage, Reform UK leader, who went out to D-Day and stayed for as long as he could and has come back and has attacked, as we say, the PM today. What does Penny Mordaunt do?
Right.
She knows she's got a chance here to land some blows in her favour.
She can't stand
with the
by
base.
Rishi Sunak's words as a
Well, she'll find it very hard to, Martin. I think it will be worth watching, and I'll be in a spin room for all of our viewers afterwards to get the reaction, but it could be really spicy.
Wow. Do you think that's likely? Do you think that she will make this hugely dramatic Machiavellian moment on live television and denounce the Prime Minister and more or less put her leadership bid on the table?
She might say something like, well, I wouldn't have done that, as I'm sure the PM admits, or something like that.
But Nigel Farage is sure to go for the throw. Angela Rayner is sure to go for the throw.
Well, they are not going to hold back in a seven-way. It's going to be a complete pile-on on Penny Mordaunt. And the bad news for Rishi Sunak is it couldn't be anyone worse, because that's somebody who's not really that trusted by Downing Street.
Astonishing. It's an astonishing act. Yesterday should have been an act of national coming together, of historic jubilation, and yet we have D-Day veterans this morning going on public record saying they feel Rishi Sunak let the country down. I still can't believe this. It is
staggering. I just think it just shows to me he lacks some political magic dust that would show you can't do this. You've got to try and recognise the importance of D-Day. And as these events get grander and the veterans group gets smaller, it becomes more and more important to show that it matters. And going back for an interview, apparently with ITV, for a documentary interview ahead of to air out next week, it was hardly pressing.
Incredible. Right, there are other political stories in town, of course. The Labour Party today in a secret huddle, a 12 till 5 p.m. meeting that's going on right now. Mobile phones banned, apparently. Their manifesto is being observed by 100 MPs. Tell us more.
Cameras are there outside. 10 union barons, a shadow cabinet. Maybe let's say dozens of individuals need to know what's in this manifesto. It's a Clause 5 moment in their constitution. Labour figures have to approve this manifesto. No other parties, well, the Lib Dems are, but the Tories aren't like this. They're meeting today. Ahead of next Thursday, we expect the manifesto to be launched by the Labour Party. Of course, this weekend you might see leaks dropping. Remember that when Jeremy Corbyn's entire manifesto was leaked to us at the Telegraph at the time and to other newspapers, that was a moment. In fact, it was seen as a chaotic moment, damaging Labour. In fact, it helped Labour because we had 7 days to talk about Labour policies in detail before the others put their manifestos out. So if you want to leak your manifesto, Labour, you know where I am. But just to say, I think we are hearing early indications of what's in there, notably on Palestine. A Labour government would look to recognise Palestine as a state before peace talks are over. A lot of
people saying that's a cynical ploy to grab the Muslim vote. We'll have more on that as it lands. Let's end on a bit of fun. Neighbours. Everybody needs good neighbours, except Richard Holden, perhaps, because tell us more. Holly Valance.
Holly Valance, now Holly Kennedy, now she's got married to Nick Kennedy, who's a property millionaire. She is deciding right now, this hour, Martin, whether to stand in Basildon and Billericay as Reform UK's candidate against Richard Holden. What the Reform UK is trying to do is to take advantage of some upset locally that this guy, Richard Holden, the Tory party chairman, was imposed on members there as the only candidate for the election, rather than a shortlist of 3. Other people wanted to have a go at that. It's a prize seat, I think, quite near London, with a good Tory majority at the last time. They are cross, and it looks like Holly Valance, Kiss Kiss singer. You know all this, don't you, Martin?
I do.
Back in the day when you wore your disco pants.
I was in a magazine where we had Holly Valance on our pages.
On your pages.
Different times.
But she's a serious person now, I've got to say. A serious person.
Been on your podcast?
Been on my podcast, Shoppers Politics podcast. She's also political podcast. Also, I interviewed her at the PopCon event, Popular Conservatism, and went viral, the clip, because she's come out as this rather interesting celebrity who was quite Tory, conservative in her views, and that makes it quite interesting.
This is a plot twist nobody saw coming. A plot twist worthy of a soap opera. We'll have more on that next time. Chris, you really are on fire today. Magnificent stuff. Now, here is a full list of those people who have declared their candidacy in the Basildon and Billericay constituency so far. It's Alex Harrison for the Labour Party, Richard Holden, Conservative Party, Stephen Conley, Reform UK Party, of course that may change, and Stuart Goshawk of the Green Party. Stuart Goshawk. OK, now let's get more on Rishi Sunak's decision to leave a D-Day ceremony early to do a TV interview. And I'm joined by the former NATO commander, Rear Admiral Chris Parry. Welcome to the show, Chris. Always a delight. You may have heard us in the studio here. Absolutely astonished. We cannot get our heads around it. We're not servicemen. We're not military veteran. You are. What's your take?
Well, to tell you the truth, as a veteran, as a serviceman, you know, I'm used to going to sort of events like this. As a veteran, you know, I'm not fussed about it. If the Prime Minister doesn't feel he needs to be there, then he doesn't need to be there. What I do worry about is I expect my Prime Minister to represent this country at international level, just like the England football captain does, when there are other international personages around. The fact of life is, if you leave a big meeting like this, where you've got the President of the United States, President of France, and others there, what are you saying in terms of respect to them? The other thing is the optics are dreadful, and it just reinforces to me the idea that the people who are advising the Prime Minister at number 10, who are already at the moment under suspicion for leading him up the garden path, have done it yet again.
Chris, I'm in the studio here. Christopher Hope here with Martin today. Who do you felt looked more prime ministerial yesterday, Keir Starmer or Rishi Sunak?
Yeah, it's a really good question. On this issue, I'm afraid both of them are using the situation, one to try and get out of a scrape, the other one to exploit it. There is absolutely no way you can't politicise this, because we're talking about the two most important people in our political system. But to tell you the truth, I don't think either of them do. As a military officer, I am not convinced by the sort of leadership I would get from either of them.
That's interesting. And finally, Chris, before you go, I've got a few veteran pals who've been sending me their thoughts on this. Some of them are printable. I'll tell you a few of the words they were using. They were using words like outrageous, disrespectful and disgusting. Knowing what you know about the mindset of veterans, do you think this will make them more or less likely or unchanged to vote for the Conservative Party?
You know, I mean, veterans have got a mind of their own. I think there's been a lot of hysteria over this. The Prime Minister's made a mistake. It's as simple as that. It's a political mistake. I think, you know, you've spoken about a Ratner moment or Gillian moment. You know, at the end of the day, these things happen. I don't expect somebody so senior, though, to be tripped up by something so obvious. That's my point. A lot of veterans will say, look, we respect the dead of 80 years ago. We respect the people who actually contributed. We remember all the people we've served with who have made that sacrifice. What I'm disappointed by is that none of our senior politicians have said, look, this is the level of sacrifice you have to make if you get deterrence wrong against totalitarian powers. And that is very relevant for today when we're faced by Russia, China, Iran, and the others. That's what I'm hearing from what I would call the more discerning veterans. The fact the Prime Minister bunks off to do a TV interview, frankly, is something that will be forgotten by July the 5th.
OK. Thank you very much. Very diplomatically put, in fact, more politically put than perhaps the Prime Minister would have done himself. Thank you very much for joining us, former NATO Commander Rear Admiral Chris Parry. Now, I'll have lots more, of course, on Rishi Sunak's D-Day mistake throughout the show, and there's plenty of coverage on our website, GBNews.com. You've helped to make it the fastest-growing national news website in the country. So I'm going to bring you the latest on the search for the missing TB doctor Michael Mosley, who has disappeared in Greece. After this, I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
I've got a grade 3 astrocytoma brain tumour. Once I was diagnosed, I tried to do my claim with my insurance company and was rejected. They then also cancelled my life insurance and also cancelled my wife's policies as well.
And this is Zurich Insurance,
This
John.
is Zurich,
and their point was, because you'd had some dizzy spells, which you hadn't told them about, they say dizzy spells equates to a brain tumour, which there's no evidence to support that.
I was with King's College Hospital. They ignored them. King's College Hospital were the experts.
And you were expecting £25,000?
Yeah, that was a critical illness claim.
Critical illness, because you've got a critical illness. Clearly, it couldn't be more critical, could it?
No.
Michelle, you've got a lovely, poorly husband, and you're also worrying about paying the bills and what the future holds.
Yeah.
What impact is this having on you on a day-to-day basis?
I try not to think too much about the future because it does upset me. I'm kind of thinking, when John does go, I'm left with a mortgage to pay and 2 young children.
How old are your kids?
5 and 3.
Right.
Yeah. So it's incredibly tough.
And are you working?
I haven't worked since having the children.
Right.
And that's a decision we made when we had children.
In the grand scheme of things, this amount of money is a drop in the ocean for a company like Zurich.
Yeah, because I think they could make all this go away.
I've read some of the statement. Zurich said, "We're sorry to hear of the very difficult circumstances Mr. Rendler's family are experiencing." You're terminally ill, and they're calling that difficult circumstances.
The People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians and the media, but it's actually about you. We won't forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
More than ever, it's important to hear all sides
as you make your decision in the run-up to polling day.
This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's election channel.
Welcome back. It's 3:27. I'm Martin Daubney. This is GB News. Now, later in the show, I'll talk about claims that nearly 20 of the Green Party's election candidates have shared anti-Semitic material online. What's going on with the Greens? But before that, Scotland's First Minister John Swinney has hit out at Rishi Sunak. He's criticised the Prime Minister for his premature D-Day departure yesterday and is accusing him of making baseless and inappropriate attacks towards the Labour Party. And this is after Mr Sunak said a Keir Starmer government would raise taxes by £2,000 for every working household. Well, GB News' Scotland reporter Tony Maguire is in Scotland. Tony, welcome to the show. So Mr Swinney has been in full effect. What's he been saying?
Yes, good afternoon, Martin. Well, John Swinney came back from those commemorative events in Normandy and Portsmouth, and, you know, it was interesting. He basically had a selection box of Tory attacks to use from stories that had broke over the last few days. The first, as you said, he watched those debates on Tuesday night, you know, and he attacked Rishi Sunak for that move against the tax and that £2,000 tax rise should the public vote for Labour. He then, of course, moved on to Rishi Sunak's quick departure from those events in Normandy and asked why he didn't fulfil his duty as Prime Minister, not as leader of the Conservative Party for that TV interview, but why he didn't represent the people of the UK at a time and among another group of world leaders. Here's what Mr Swinney had to say earlier today.
I think it tells us all we need to know about the judgment of the Prime Minister, but there's been countless other issues upon which we've seen the poor judgment of the Prime Minister, not least of which we saw some of his decisions, for example, on the Eat Out to Help Out scheme during COVID, which was a disastrous policy intervention. So it tells us all we need to know about his judgment, and I think an apology of that nature after the event is just hollow language to get the Prime Minister out of the mess that he is in of his own making.
And if that wasn't enough trouble for the Tories, well, Douglas Ross has got himself embroiled in something of his own up in Scotland. David Duckett, who was going to be representing Aberdeen North and Moray East, well, the Conservative Party have decided that in spite of him recovering from a spinal infection, that Douglas Ross, after saying he wouldn't return to Westminster, that Douglas Ross is now going to sit in that seat. So lots happening for the Conservative Party and lots of bones, it would seem, for the SNP to pick over going into the weekend.
Thank you, Tony Maguire, for that update from a gloriously sunny Glasgow. Now, there's lots more still to come between now and 4 o'clock, and I'll talk about a huge success in the European Union elections for a populist party in the Netherlands who are strongly against mass immigration, as are the electorates. But first, it's your latest news headlines with Sam Francis.
Martin, thank you very much and good afternoon to you. It's just after 3:30. The headlines this afternoon. The Prime Minister has repeatedly apologised after facing criticism for leaving D-Day commemorations in France early and admitted it was a mistake. Well, it's emerged that he returned to the UK for a TV interview, but insists the plans were put in place weeks before the general election. Foreign Secretary Lord Cameron was present and the Prime Minister had already attended 2 previous memorial events. He's urging people to judge him on his actions when it comes to supporting the armed forces.
On reflection, that was a mistake and I apologise. I think it's important, though, given the enormity of the sacrifice made, that we don't politicise this. The focus should rightly be on the veterans who gave so much. I had the honour and privilege of speaking to many of them and their families, hearing their stories, expressing my gratitude personally to them. But I'm someone who will always admit when I've made a mistake. That's what you'll always get from me.
Well, Rishi Sunak has denied lying over claims that a Labour government would raise taxes by £2,000 per household. The Prime Minister said during a televised debate that the figure had been checked by independent Treasury officials. But the Treasury's Permanent Secretary suggested the figure isn't a full representation of its estimates. In other news, sniffer dogs and divers have joined the search for a TV doctor, Michael Mosley. That's after he went missing while on holiday on the Greek island of Symi. The presenter, who's known for appearing on programmes like the BBC's One Show and the podcast Just One Thing, hasn't been seen since Wednesday. It's understood that he left his phone where he was staying while he went for a walk. Local police paused their operation late last night, but that has now continued with reinforcements. Police and firefighters have also been using drones to scan the island, which is about 25 miles north of Rhodes. And a Just Stop Oil protester has set off a fire extinguisher outside the Duke of Westminster's wedding today, where Prince William was an usher. It happened as billionaire Hugh Grosvenor and his new wife, Olivia Henson, were leaving the ceremony at Chester Cathedral. They waved to media and the public as they left, with thousands of people lining the streets to watch. That's the latest from the newsroom for now. Another update at 4 o'clock. Until then, you can sign up to GB News Alerts. Just scan the code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Well, let's get a look at the markets this afternoon. The pound will buy you $1.2717 and €1.1761. If you're watching on TV, apologies, the figures aren't quite there for you. The price of gold is £1,823.26 per ounce, and the FTSE 100 is at 8,263 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Well done, Sam. Now, we've got lots more still to come. In a few minutes, I'll bring you the first in our new series when we speak to real people about the issues affecting them going into the general election. But first, there's a new way to get in touch with us here at GB News. And here's Bev Turner with all of the details.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family. Simply go to gbnews.com/your say.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, I'm John Vincent. Queues on the M62 westbound in West Yorkshire. There's 2 lanes closed there for an accident just before junction 28 Tingley. The usual queues in the West Midlands for the M5 northbound to join the M6 at junction 8. Queues then continue on the M6 northbound to junction 9 Wednesbury. Severe delays in Oxfordshire. The M40 northbound is closed for recovery work following an earlier overturned lorry. That's between junction 9 Bicester and 10. The Cherwell Valley services diversions are signposted. We're seeing a slowdown on the southbound stretch due to barrier repairs, and nearby routes are severely congested. And queues on the M4 eastbound in Wiltshire. 1 lane closed there due to a vehicle fire, blowing smoke across the road. That's between junction 15 Swindon East and 14 for Hungerford. And that's the latest traffic and travel news.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Mark Dolan Tonight. Weekends from 9 p.m.
England's new patron saint, Gary Lineker, a man holier and more virtuous than Mother Teresa and Gandhi combined, strikes again. Never one to miss the chance of some moral posturing, goal-hanging PR opportunist Lineker has spoken out about tonight's Champions League final. He tweeted the following: "This is the first time I'll be cheering for Real Madrid in a Champions League final." The German side Dortmund have signed a 3-year sponsorship deal with weapons manufacturer Rheinmetall. Now, Gary Lineker is not a stupid person. Following a stellar career on the pitch, it was a storied transition to broadcasting. And let me tell you, he's worth every penny of that £1.3 million a year of licence fee payers' cash to introduce football clips. So how did it escape the attention of this bright man that our democracies and our freedoms are protected and defended by the weapons produced like companies such as Rheinmetall? In fact, we should big up, not cancel, Rheinmetall, who have produced some of the armaments which are now helping Ukraine. Well, I'm very confused because I thought Gary Lineker was very supportive of Ukraine and their battle for survival. But now he wants to take their weapons away. I'm very, very confused. After all, they're going to need weapons with which to defend themselves. They can't fight by sending off tweets like Gary does. Now, many people love Gary Lineker. He has over 8 million followers on Twitter. This idol of the progressive left battled HMRC in court to reduce his tax bill by almost £5 million. This latest Lineker rant about war is weapons-grade nonsense. Sorry, Gary, but you're firing blanks.
The People's Channel.
Welcome back. Your time is 3:38. I'm Martin Daubney and this is GB News. Later in the show, I'll speak about what's been dubbed the society wedding of the year, as the billionaire, the Duke of Westminster, got hitched. He had the Prince William as one of his ushers as well, and Just Stop Oil tried to rain on their parade. Before that, it's officially summer and we've got a brand new summer giveaway. There's £15,000 in tax-free cash to make summer spectacular. A brand new iPhone, AirPods and £500 to spend at the UK attraction of your choice. So if you like theme parks, visiting stately homes or fancy a spa day out, well, that all could be on us here at GB News. And here's all the details that you need to enter.
It's the Great British Summer Giveaway, and have we got a prize for you? There's a totally tax-free £15,000 in cash to make your summer spectacular. Spend that extra cash however you like. You'll also win a brand new iPhone, Apple AirPods, and if that wasn't enough, a £500 voucher to spend at your favourite UK attraction, so you can enjoy amazing days out this year. For a chance to win the iPhone, treats, and £15,000 cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Get stuck in. Now, throughout the election campaign, we'll be hearing from people across the United Kingdom about what really matters to them, the real issues. Issues such as NHS waiting lists, the impact of immigration, the cost of living crisis and crime and policing. Our reporters have been to meet voters from all 4 nations and we'll be hearing from them regularly before polling day itself on July the 4th. And today, for the first time, we meet Matthew.
I'm Matthew Worley. I'm 46 years old and I live in Oldham, Greater Manchester. So one of the main issues to me is immigration. I think the illegal boat crossings need to be dealt with quite urgently. It's just unbelievable the amount of people that they're letting in the country. I don't think the Tories know what they're doing, to be fair. I don't think they've got an answer. The Rwanda plan, they seem to be putting on hold until after the election. I don't know if they're using that as a bit of a bribe for the electorate. So in the past I have voted for Labour and I have voted for Tory, so I'm probably what you consider a floating voter. At this stage in the game, I don't feel I can trust Labour. I don't know who Keir Starmer is and what he stands for, to be fair. And the Tories have just let their voters down. Richard Tice and the Reform Party is saying things that I like, so my vote would probably go for them. I've got quite a young family, 2 young daughters and my wife, obviously, and I do worry about their future growing up in this country, especially with mass migration and the pressure on our services. It's basically a numbers game, and our services are failing, NHS, schooling, housing, that kind of thing. So I'm wondering what this country will look like in the next 10, 20, 30 years' time if nothing is done about it.
You know, I absolutely love that. 5 years ago today, I was elected in as an MEP. We're going to talk about the European elections later in the show. They're happening right now, 5 years on. I met so many people like Matthew, people who've been hopping around different political lily pads, trying to find somewhere they can call home. And they continually feel let down by their parties. And so their votes are up for grabs. Every party should be pleading with people like Matthew to vote for them. Concerns about immigration, about state of the nation. I absolutely love that piece. Please get in touch with your views. What would make you vote for a party? What do you want to hear from the politicians? Get in touch, gbnews.com/your say. And there's a new way to do that. Here it is. Send your views. Post your comments, gbnews.com/your say. Please get in touch. Now, loads of emails have come in already about the issue of Rishi Sunak yesterday leaving that event early in Normandy. It's really divided you. Has to be said, about 75% don't think it's a good thing at all. They're against Rishi. Here are a few. Gary says this: I can't believe Rishi Sunak left the D-Day service. It's unbelievable. I'm Conservative through and through, but that just shows how he only cares about himself. How could such an intelligent man do something so dumb? Martin adds this: 80th anniversary remembrance arranged long before the election date was revealed. There's no way TV interviews are arranged first. And Malcolm quickly, please give Rishi Sunak a break. This is not the legacy our fathers and grandfathers would have wanted. Now let's cross live to Normandy, where a day after that 80th anniversary of D-Day, President Joe Biden is about to make a speech about the importance of
Joe
democracy.
Biden. John, how are you? Please sit down. At last, the hour had come. Dawn, 6th of June, 1944. The wind was pounding as it is today, and always has, against these cliffs. 225 American Rangers arrived by ship, jumped into the waves and stormed the beach. All they could see was the outline of the shore and the enormity of these cliffs. And I'd like to look, I know I'll get in trouble with the Secret Service if I go to the edge and look over, but think of those cliffs, as my host just showed me. That's what we're standing on top of. They could hear, all they could hear was the crack of bullets hitting ships, sand, rocks, hitting everything. All they knew was time was of the essence. They had only 30 minutes to eliminate the Nazi guns high on this cliff. Guns that could halt the Allied invasion before it even began. But these were American Rangers. They were ready. They ran toward the cliffs and mines planted on the beach by Field Marshal Rommel exploded around them, but still they kept coming. Gunfire rained above them, but still they kept coming. Nazi grenades thrown from above exploded against the cliffs, but still they kept coming. Within minutes, they reached the base of this cliff. They launched their ladders, their ropes, and grappling hooks, and they began to climb. When the Nazis cut their ladders, the Rangers used the ropes. When the Nazis cut their ropes, the Rangers used their hands. And inch by inch, foot by foot, yard by yard, the Rangers literally clawed their way up this mighty precipice until at last they reached the top. They breached Hitler's Atlantic Wall, and they turned in that one effort the tide of the war that began to save the world. Ladies and gentlemen, yesterday I paid my respects at the American Cemetery just a few miles from here, where many of those Rangers who died taking this cliff are buried. I spoke of what the fallen had done to defend freedom. Today, as I look out at this battlefield and all the bunkers and bomb craters that are still surrounded, one thought comes to mind. My God, how did they do it? How were these Americans willing to risk everything, dare everything, and give everything? There were Americans like Sergeant Leonard Lommel from New Jersey. He was one of the first Rangers to jump off his ship and run toward the cliff. He almost was shot right above the hip initially, and he wasn't sure, but he was. He kept going. At one point, he was scaling the cliff, and another Ranger yelled, "I'm not sure I can make it." And Lommel yelled back with every ounce of strength he had in him, "You've got to hold on." And he did, and they did. Americans like Sergeant Tom Ruggiero from Massachusetts. A German shell hit his boat as he was approaching the shore. Everything exploded. The sergeant was knocked into the freezing water. And as he told it, he began to utter a prayer. "Dear God, don't let me drown. I want to get in and do what I'm here and supposed to do." Americans like Colonel James Rudder, Texas. When the military asked for a battalion for this daring mission, he raised his hand and said, "My Rangers can do the job." He knew their capacity. He knew the strength of their character. A few days after they scaled this cliff, he wrote a condolence letter to a mother of one of the Rangers who gave his life here. And that letter said, "A country must be great. Call for the sacrifice of such men." A country must be great to call for the sacrifice of such men. And Americans like John Wardell from New Jersey. John is here. John, we love you, man. Thank you for all you've done. Deserve that and a lot more, John. Just 18 years old, he deployed to this cliff to replace the surviving Rangers on that D-Day invasion. He would go on to fight across France and Germany. In early December 1944, during one of those battles, shrapnel pierced his skull. But by Christmas, he was back, fighting with his unit. And here's what he said about the notes he kept at that time. He said, "Knowing that my buddies and I always looked out for one another. That's why he came back. That's why he fought so hard to get back. He always looked out, and his buddies looked out for one another." We talk about democracy. American democracy. We often talk about the ideals of life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. What we don't talk about is how hard it is. How many ways we're asked to walk away, how many instincts are to walk away. The most natural instinct is to walk away, to be selfish, to force our will upon others, to seize power, never give up. American democracy asks the hardest of things, to believe that we're part of something bigger than ourselves. So democracy begins with each of us. It begins when one person decides there's something more important than themselves. When they decide the person they're serving alongside of is someone to look after. When they decide the mission matters more than their life. When they decide that their country matters more than they do. That's what the Rangers at Pointe du Hoc did. That's what they decided. That's what every soldier, every Marine who stormed this beaches decided. Feared dictator had conquered a continent, had finally met his match. Because of them, the war turned. They stood against Hitler's aggression. Does anyone doubt that they would want America to stand up against Putin's aggression here in Europe today? They stormed the beaches alongside our allies. Does anyone believe these Rangers would want America to go it alone today? They fought to vanquish a hateful ideology in the 30s and 40s. Does anyone doubt they wouldn't move heaven and earth to vanquish hateful ideologies of today? These Rangers put mission and country above themselves. Does anyone believe they would exact any less from every American today? These Rangers remembered with reverence those who gave their lives in battle. Could they or anyone ever imagine that America would do the same, wouldn't do the same? They believed America was a beacon to the world. I'm certain they believed that it would be that way forever. You know, we stand today, where we stand was not sacred ground on June the 5th. That's what it became on June the 6th. The Rangers who scaled this cliff didn't know they would change the world, but they did. I've long said that history has shown that ordinary Americans can do extraordinary things when challenged. There's no better example of that in the entire world than right here at Pointe du Hoc. Rangers from farms and cities in every part of America, from homes that didn't know wealth and power. They came to a shoreline that none of them would have picked out on a map. They came to a country many of them had never seen, or a people they had never met. But they came. They did their job. They fulfilled their mission. And they did their duty. They were part of something greater than themselves. They were Americans. I stand here today as the first president to come to Pointe du Hoc when none of those 225 brave men who scaled this cliff on D-Day are still alive. None. But I'm here to tell you that with them gone, the wind we hear coming off this ocean will not fade. It will grow louder as we gather here today. It's not just to honor those who showed such remarkable bravery on that day, June 6, 1944. It's to listen to the echoes of their voices, to hear them, because they are summoning us, and they're summoning us now. They ask us, what will we do? They're not asking us to scale these cliffs, but they're asking us to stay true to what America stands for. They're not asking us to give or risk our lives, but they are asking us to care for others in our country more than ourselves. They're not asking us to do their job. They're asking us to do our job. Protect freedom in our time, to defend democracy, to stand up aggression abroad and at home, to be part of something bigger than ourselves. My fellow Americans, I refuse to believe, I simply refuse to believe that America's greatness is a thing of the past. I still believe there's nothing beyond our capacity in America when we act together. We're the fortunate heirs of a legacy of these heroes, those who scale the cliffs, point to Hawk. We must also be the keepers of their mission, the keepers of their mission, the bearers of the flame of freedom that they kept burning bright. That is the truest testimonial to their lives. Our actions every day to ensure that our democracy endures and the soul of our nation endures. To come here, simply to remember the ghosts of Point to Hawk isn't enough. We need to hear them. We have to listen to them. We need to listen to what they had. We need to make a solemn vow to never let them down. God bless the fallen. God bless the brave men who scaled these cliffs. May God protect our troops. God bless America.
And that was Joe Biden there speaking at Point de Hoc in Normandy, a beach where 235 American Rangers scaled a cliff on D-Day. He said one thought comes to mind: my God, how did they do it? He talked about American Rangers, still they kept coming. Nazi grenades fell down, landmines, still they kept coming. They launched their ladders, the Nazis threw them off. They threw their ropes, the Nazis cut their ropes. So they clawed their way up that cliff inch by inch, and they turned the tide of the war. He talked very movingly how Rangers were shouting out, saying, "Please don't let me drown." Others later wrote home to their mothers and said, "A country must be real great for a man to sacrifice so much." He then referred to a veteran, a US veteran who was looking on, called John, and he said, "We love you, man," in a typically American way. A huge round of applause for that veteran. They then went on. He said Hitler had finally met his match when those Rangers stormed onto that beach. Don't any of you doubt that. And then he went on to say, don't doubt that Americans wouldn't stand up to Putin. The same now. He pulled it into the modern era. He then movingly said, Rangers who scaled that cliff, they didn't know that they would change the world, but they did. And then he said, when they came here, they did their duty. They stand up for their country. They were a part of something bigger, a part of something else, a part of something worth dying for, America. He then movingly went on to inform us none of the 235 men who had scaled that cliff survived. And then he said, but we hear the echoes of their voices in the air. He talked movingly about how their memory lived on. And then he turned round to American countrymen of the world today. And he said, if those Rangers could say to us now, what would you do? They'd be asking us to stand up for our countrymen. They'd be asking us to stand up for democracy. They'd be asking us to stand up for American values. He then said they'd be asking us to stand up to aggression abroad and at home. Perhaps that's a slight barb towards the forthcoming election campaign for the presidential race on November the 5th. But a very, very moving and personal tale. I mean, name-checked a few of those individuals who came ashore, who wrote letters back home and talked with huge astonishment of the horror they had to face. He said many of these men, the huge majority of these men, wouldn't know where to find this coast on a map. They'd never been to this country before. They'd never met these people before, and yet they did their duty. When he said Adolf Hitler had finally found his match, finally met his match in these ordinary Rangers, he said they are from cities, they are from farms, they are ordinary Americans who stood up to be a part of something greater. I thought a very emotional, expansive speech, one that pulled at the heartstrings, one that certainly went down well with the crowd, touching on the past, touching on the present, touching upon the legacy and the importance of D-Day on a place those boys had never been before. Many of them died, and now none of them survive, but their memory lives on. I thought the powerful line there was when he said, "We hear their echoes in the air against these cliffs to this day." Joe Biden there speaking at Point de Hoc in Normandy, a beach absolutely integral to the D-Day event. Fantastically moving speech. Okay, stay with us. It's now 4 p.m. and this is the Mosley and Daubney show on GB News, and we're broadcasting live from the halls of Westminster and all across the UK. Moving on, there's been a huge backlash against Rishi Sunak after he decided to leave D-Day commemorations in Normandy yesterday to attend a TV interview. The Prime Minister's apologised, but is this now his darkest hour? Up next, an Aussie actress standing against the Tory party chairman at the general election. Well, it sounds like the plot's from a soap opera, doesn't it? That's precisely what might happen today, as former Neighbours pin-up Holly Valance could dramatically declare for the Reform Party. We'll have more on that from our political editor, Chris Hope. And next up, Greek police are scouring the island of Symi in a desperate search for Michael Mosley, the TV doctor. Sniffer dogs, drones and helicopters have now been deployed to locate the much-loved TV doctor who disappeared on a walk now 2 days ago. We'll have the latest on this story. And Just Stop Oil have been at it again. And this time they've targeted the wedding of a billionaire who had Prince William as one of his ushers. Never mind Just Stop Oil. Now they're trying to just stop the royals. And that's all on the way between now and 6 o'clock. Okay, thanks for joining us. Get in touch the usual way, gbnews.com/your say. But before all of that, it's your news headlines with Sam Francis.
Martin, thank you very much, and good afternoon to you. It's just coming up to 2 minutes past 4. The top stories from the newsroom today. Veterans, opposition parties and some of the Prime Minister's own MPs have criticised him for leaving yesterday's D-Day commemorations early. Rishi Sunak has apologised and admitted it was a mistake, but insists it shouldn't be politicised, and he says that his diary was set weeks ago before the general election was announced.
Reflection, that was a mistake and I apologise. I think it's important though, given the enormity of the sacrifice made, that we don't politicise this. The focus should rightly be on the veterans who gave so much. I had the honour and privilege of speaking to many of them and their families, hearing their stories, expressing my gratitude personally to them, but I'm someone who will always admit when I've made a mistake. That's what you'll always get from me.
Well, as we've been hearing in the last few moments, standing at the cliffs the US soldiers scaled on D-Day, Joe Biden has been warning against modern authoritarian threats. Speaking in Normandy, the US president stressed the need to support Ukraine and drew contrasts with his rival Donald Trump. He's urged people to stay true to the values fought for in World War II.
We're the fortunate heirs of a legacy of these heroes, those who scale the cliffs, Point de Hoc. But we must also be the keepers of their mission, the keepers of their mission, the bearers of the flame of freedom that they kept burning bright. That is the truest testimonial to their lives. Our actions every day to ensure that our democracy endures and the soul of our nation endures.
Next to news from the election campaign trail, Rishi Sunak has denied lying over claims that Labour government would raise taxes by £2,000 per household. The Prime Minister had said that during a televised debate, claiming that the figure had been checked by independent Treasury officials. But the Treasury's Permanent Secretary has suggested the figure isn't a full representation of its estimates. Both the Conservatives and Labour have pledged not to increase income tax, national insurance or VAT. Labour is pledging to introduce a series of new schemes aimed at boosting the availability of mortgages for first-time buyers. Among those plans would be an expansion of the mortgage guarantee, meaning that if a bank repossesses a first-time buyer's house, the government would compensate some of the losses. The Conservative Party has also unveiled its own measures, including a pledge not to raise stamp duty.
This is a game changer. If you're a young couple and you want to have the security of a roof, your own roof over your head, this is a game changer, because many of those people, let's say a young couple both on a reasonable wage, will be paying a fortune in rent, and because of that they can't afford to save for a deposit. And if you don't have a parent who can help you out, that means you're never going to get on the housing ladder.
Sir Keir Starmer there speaking earlier. Well, staying with the election, the Liberal Democrats are setting out their plans to make parental leave more flexible, including what they call a dad month. On the election trail today, Sir Ed Davey's promising to double statutory maternity pay and encourage more fathers to take time off work. Well, the Conservatives say they'll also cut taxes for thousands of families. However, Lib Dem spokesperson for Education, Children and Young People, Munira Wilson, says families need more choice and flexibility.
There's lots of parents up and down the country, both mums and dads, who'd love to take more time off work in those early months for their children's first smile, first steps, first words, but just simply can't afford to do so because statutory pay at the moment is less than half the minimum wage if you were working full time. So we'd double statutory maternity and shared parental pay. We'd also increase paternity pay to 90% of earnings with a cap, but also we would look to increase paternity leave pay, which is very low at the moment, again to 90% of earnings.
Sniffer dogs and divers have joined the search for TV doctor Michael Mosley after he went missing while on holiday on the Greek island of Symi. The presenter, who's known for appearing on programmes like The One Show and the podcast Just One Thing, hasn't been seen since Wednesday. It's understood he left his phone where he was staying. Local police paused their operation late last night, but that has now continued with reinforcements, including the use of drones to scan the island, which is around 25 miles north of Rhodes. And finally, before we head back to Martin, a Just Stop Oil protester has set off a fire extinguisher outside the Duke of Westminster's wedding today, where Prince William was an usher. It happened as billionaire Hugh Grosvenor and his new wife, Olivia Henson, were leaving the ceremony at Chester Cathedral. Well, they did manage to wave to media and the public as they left, with thousands of people lining the streets to watch. For the latest stories, you can sign up to GB News Alerts. Just scan the QR code on your screen or go to our website, gbnews.com/alerts.
Now we start with Rishi Sunak, of course, who's apologised after leaving a D-Day ceremony early yesterday to record a TV interview. And I'm putting this to you. Is this now the Prime Minister's darkest hour? Well, in a moment, we'll put this to the Conservative parliamentary candidate, Sir John Whittingdale. But first, let's hear from the Prime Minister himself.
What were you thinking?
Over the past 2 days, I've participated in a number of events in Portsmouth and France to honour those who risked their lives to defend our freedom and our values 80 years ago. The itinerary for these events was set weeks ago, before the start of the general election campaign, and having participated in all the British events with British veterans, I returned home before the International Leaders event later in the day. On reflection, that was a mistake, and I apologise. I think it's important, though, given the enormity of the sacrifice made, that we don't politicise this. The focus should rightly be on the veterans who gave so much. I had the honour and privilege of speaking to many of them and their families, hearing their stories, expressing my gratitude personally to them. But I'm someone who will always admit when I've made a mistake. That's what you'll always get from me.
Well, Sir Keir Starmer was quick to respond, and he says Rishi Sunak will have to answer for his own actions.
I was able to say thank you to them on behalf of the Labour Party, also on behalf of my children who live freely because of their actions and the actions of their fallen comrades. That was really humbling. It was really important to me. It was a privilege to be there, and Rishi Sunak will have to answer for his choice. For me, there was only one choice, which was to be there, to pay my respects, to say thank you, and to have the opportunity to speak to those veterans.
And it's not just the Labour Party who have been critical of the Prime Minister. Liberal Democrats Munira Wilson says Rishi Sunak is not fit for office.
Too little, too late. Frankly, he's disgraced his office. I think people up and down the country will just be aghast at the Prime Minister's priorities, that this really important event commemorating our veterans who, many, sacrificed their lives for our freedoms and for our democracy, dashing home early from that to do a television news interview, I think people will just be incredulous. I feel he's undermined his very senior, the most senior office in the land, and he's not fit to be Prime Minister.
What a situation. And to discuss it, I'm joined by our political correspondent, Catherine Forster, who joins me now in the studio in Westminster. Catherine, I've seen that interview now, Rishi Sunak, in its entirety, not just that clip, but in its entirety, several times. It just gets worse. It's robotic, it's repetitive. He looks like he's caught in the headlights. There's been a resignation. Ian Aitchison has quit as a Tory party member. He's a highly respected advisor. It's getting worse and worse and worse for Rishi Sunak.
Every time I sit here and talk about how bad things are for the Conservatives or Rishi Sunak, it feels that they couldn't get much worse. And yet they do. And the thing with this is it was so unnecessary, because it should have been an easy win for the Prime Minister to stand there. You know, the optics of the photographs yesterday afternoon with Emmanuel Macron, with Chancellor Scholz, with Joe Biden, for Rishi Sunak to stand there looking like the world leader that he is. The Conservatives have invested a lot in this campaign of saying, trust us for security, the world is a dangerous place, don't better the devil, we're putting up defence spending, we're looking after veterans. Now, they are doing those things. But in some ways, that's all been lost, because looking at those pictures, most people don't know the nitty-gritty and aren't interested in. People see those images and they see the Foreign Secretary, David Cameron, where you'd expect to see the Prime Minister, and the message that sends is, for some reason, Rishi Sunak or his advisers didn't think it was as important as Joe Biden did, or Emmanuel Macron, or Olaf Scholz. Now, yes, he went to the British events yesterday morning and in Portsmouth the day before, but I really feel that all that is being lost. And watching that clip, it's interesting, because when these pool clips are done on behalf of all the broadcasters, I've done a lot of them. They tend to get clipped up a few seconds here and a few seconds there. We played that out in full earlier, and when you see the full thing, you realise how sort of formulaic the answers are. And Rishi Sunak trotted out those lines over and over again. But his face was, I've sat here so many times and saying how upbeat, how positive he is. There was none of that. He clearly realises that this is a terrible error, and despite the apology, and all credit to him for making it, I do think this is really, really damaging. And he's saying, let's not politicise it. But of course, all the other parties have leapt upon it and chosen this moment to have a go at him, as they would, because we are in the middle of a general election campaign. And it is unfortunate, because D-Day, this huge, momentous day, we've now spent the whole day talking about Rishi Sunak.
Catherine Forster, please stay with us, because I'm now joined by the Conservative parliamentary candidate for Malden in Essex, Sir John Whittingdale. Sir John, welcome to the show. Well, it never rains, but it pours. It rained on the general election day, and now it's pouring down on Rishi Sunak in terms of the criticism. I think the worst, the most damning of all of that, Sir John, was a D-Day veteran this morning who said he felt betrayed by the Prime Minister. Do you think the Prime Minister betrayed the legacy of British veterans by leaving early yesterday?
No, I don't think I would put it like that. The Prime Minister, I think, recognised, as we all do, how important the event was yesterday, and he did attend a large number of commemorations associated with the D-Day anniversary, as indeed I did in my own constituency, where I'm standing. But he has acknowledged that leaving when he did and not staying for the event in the evening was a mistake, and clearly, it was a misjudgment which he recognises and has apologised for. But to say that he didn't play a full part, I think is not true. He attended a large number of events, both in the UK, in Portsmouth, and then the international event that took place to commemorate the British contribution in Normandy, but he didn't stay for the evening event. That had been a long-planned decision, but in retrospect, yes, he acknowledges it was a mistake.
Well, Sir John, we had Johnny Mercer on the show yesterday, and it seems like a lifetime ago extolling the virtues of the Conservatives, your Veterans Bill. Johnny was in fine form, and yet Johnny Mercer this morning said this is a significant mistake by the Prime Minister. It's disappointing. We've been speaking to veterans ourselves today, and some of their words, to be frank, aren't even mentionable on television. I want to ask you about the itinerary. That he kept saying the itinerary for these events was set up weeks ago before the start of the general election campaign, endlessly, like the Maybot. He went into projection mode, and you could tell he'd been briefed to the point of don't say anything, just say what you're told. How, in the name of God, can an ITV interview be more important than fulfilling your events, your obligations, your duty as the Prime Minister to represent Great Britain on the 80th anniversary of D-Day, which all of us knew and all of us have been saying that entire day is the most significant ever because it will be the last where there are any surviving veterans? How, Sir John Whittingdale, is a TV interview more important than that?
Well, you say he's been talking about how the itinerary was planned a long time ago, and I'm sure that's right. But of course, what wasn't as part of that was the ITV interview. That was only put in at the last minute. But he had originally decided to leave before the evening event. And I think he now realises that given the importance of all the different events taking place, that was a mistake. But he did participate in both the events taking place in the UK at Portsmouth and then the commemoration of the British contribution. So I think he absolutely recognised that this is a very important event for those who are veterans of the D-Day landings and also the rest of the country which wishes to pay tribute to them while they're still with us, which is why I think it is significant that he issued a statement acknowledging it was a mistake. Now, actually, I mean, I've been in politics a long time, and it's very, very unusual for a Prime Minister to say as categorically, I got that wrong. And I think the fact that he did so is significant and means that he is aware that it was a misjudgment.
Some are calling this the Conservative Party's Gerald Ratner moment. The moment where damage was done to the brand so badly it may never recover. Would you say that's fair, or is that an overreaction?
No, I don't think it's fair. I think all of us wanted to commemorate the sacrifice of those who lost their lives at D-Day and the veterans who are still with us. I attended a beacon lighting in Malden, as indeed I suspect almost all my colleagues did across the country. We all very much are aware of the importance of that event. And Rishi Sunak made the journey to France. He attended the commemoration in the morning, but it was a mistake not to stay on until the end. And that's something which he recognises and has apologised for. And there's not much more one can say beyond that.
Looking ahead now, we have the live TV debate, BBC One tonight. Penny Mordaunt, famed for carrying a sword. What do you think she'll do? Because they'll be gunning for her. This will be a huge attack point. Angela Rayner, Nigel Farage, the Green Party, the Liberal Democrats, the SNP. They will all, with some significance and justification, be able to turn their guns on the Conservative Party on this point. Rishi Sunak seems to have handed all of your opponents the biggest hammer to hit the party over the head with. So, John, what do you think Penny Mordaunt might do tonight? She represents a veteran seat. She's hoping to get re-elected on there. She can't stand by the Prime Minister on this, can she?
Well, Penny is the candidate for the Conservative Party in Portsmouth, which is where one of the main events took place to commemorate the D-Day landings. It played an absolutely central role in that. So she is perhaps more aware of the importance than almost anybody, because it is so central to the city that she has represented in Parliament. So I'm sure she will make clear that the Conservative Party, all of us, absolutely recognise how important the commemoration of D-Day is. And I think she will also reiterate that the Prime Minister also is aware of that and has acknowledged that not staying until the very end of the commemorations yesterday was a mistake.
OK, well, thank you very much for joining us and facing the music. Sir John Whittingdale, pleasure to have your company. Also, thank you to Catherine Forster for your contribution in the studio here. Great work. Now, I'll have lots more on Rishi Sunak's D-Day mistake at 5 o'clock, and there's plenty of coverage on our website, gbnews.com. You've helped to make it the fastest growing national news website in the country. Now to the latest on the search for the missing TV doctor Michael Mosley. And divers are searching for the 67-year-old off the Greek island of Symi, and the local police department restarted scouring the island this morning after pausing the search and rescue operation last night. Well, I'm joined in the studio now by GBNews reporter Charlie Peters. Charlie, this search now has been going on for a couple of days. What's the latest?
Well, we now have a timeline of how Dr. Mosley first went missing. We understand that he arrived on the island of Symi, which is just a few kilometres south of Turkey in the east of the Aegean Sea, on Tuesday evening to join some family friends with his wife in the centre of the island. The island is just 65 kilometres square. It's about a fifth of the size of the Isle of Wight. Very small Greek island. Now, after arriving on Tuesday, on Wednesday morning, they decided to take a small boat taxi from the centre of the island to the secluded St Nicholas beach in the east. Now, at 1:30 p.m, it's understood that he left, both his wife and that group, to walk a path of roughly 1.5 kilometres, a 20-minute walk it should be, from the beach to the town of Pedi, which is just away from St Nicholas's beach, at 1:30 p.m. on the Wednesday. He hasn't been seen since. There was some CCTV footage released earlier today of him actually in that town centre before taking that boat taxi. And so at around 3 p.m, that was when he was meant to have been seen back at the villa when the couple and his wife returned. She then raised the alarm, his wife, at 7 p.m. on Wednesday evening. At 11 a.m. the next morning, a Facebook post was made about the missing man, and then at midday, we understand that's when the Greek authorities started their search and rescue operation. The authorities in Athens were alerted, and since then, that search and rescue operation has doubled in size from its original position. Now 25 people on it at least. We do know that drones, helicopters and boats are in the waters looking for Dr. Mosley, including divers. 5 vessels now searching the seas and the waters around the Isle of Symi. Now, this island, most of the beaches are very secluded and it's a very rocky island. So many of the paths that Dr. Mosley could have taken on that walk at 1:30 away from the beach could have been quite treacherous. We also understand that the weather hit around 40 degrees Celsius around 3 p.m. on the Wednesday, so very intense heat as he took that journey.
OK, Charlie Peters, that search, as you can see there, it's ongoing. Drones, sniffer dogs, helicopters, men in the water. Terrain well known to the locals. They often go up there because of fires, so they would know that landscape very well. So this goes on and on. We'll bring you the latest as we get it. Charlie Peters, thank you very much for joining me in the studio. Now, it's been claimed that nearly 20 of the Green Party's election candidates have shared anti-Semitic material online. What's going on with the Green Party? I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nana Queer, weekends from 3 p.m.
What about the elections? Because it seems that the King and everything is moving because of it, and we've got a lot of royal engagements and things that happen at this time.
Yes, well, you know, it means that he has to take more time and be at home. He can't go to all the things he wants to do. He's been doing 5 a day, which is probably made Camilla a bit cross. But what they still hope is that they can get the Japanese Emperor and Empress over. That's in July. That they can go to France for the 80th anniversary of the fighting. And he will be able to do 1 or 2 things. And Ascot he's very keen to do. Now, those aren't things that are political in any way. Just want to talk about Harry and Charles's argument, where Harry said he didn't want to stay, he wanted to go to a hotel. And it's come out now that actually King Charles is believed that he was put into, offered St James's, and Princess Anne stays there and Beatrice stays there.
And this was for when Harry came over
when
for
he
his
came
10th
over, yeah,
anniversary for
exactly.
Invictus.
And the policemen are wandering around with guns, and there's no chance of actually there being any problem there. So the fact that he said that it wasn't safe for him was not actually a very sensible thing to say, I don't think.
Well, he went to Nigeria, and that is, in the world ranking, it's ranked as quite a dangerous place.
Yes, one of the dangerous places in the world. But now Harry and Meghan have been invited to go to Ghana.
Oh, God. Well, it's interesting because my parents are from Ghana. I have Ghanaian heritage, and I'm thinking she'll probably then claim there's a percentage that she's Ghanaian as well. I'll be like, hang on a minute, you were Maltese, you're also Nigerian,
and
now you're going to say you're Ghanaian and German.
Yeah.
Come on. Thank you very much.
Squeeze it in.
Yeah, let's get them all in. Angela Levin, thank you very much.
Thank you.
The People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. GB News, Britain's election channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back. Your time is 4:25. I'm Martin Daubney and this is GB News. Now, later in the show, I'll be joined by a Dutch MEP to discuss a huge success in the European Union elections in his country for a populist party who are strongly against mass immigration. Is there an EU earthquake? Now, before that, our brand new giveaway could make your summer extra special this year, as there's a ton of tech to be won, days out on us, and 15 grand in tax-free cash to spend however you like. Fancy the chance to win the lot? Well, here's how it could all be yours.
We've got summer sewn up with an incredible trio of treats, and you could win them. First, there's a fabulous £15,000 in tax-free cash to ensure this summer is special. What would you spend that on? Next, you'll also receive the latest iPhone 15 and a set of Apple AirPods. And finally, £500 to spend at your favourite UK attraction. Fun in the sun could be on us. For a chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Now, there's a huge shadow hanging over the Green Party ahead of the general election. The Greens are investigating claims that nearly 20 of its election candidates have shared anti-Semitic material online. But I'm now joined by GB News presenter Josh Howie. Josh, welcome to the show. It's a shame that every time we meet, it's about anti-Semitism, be it at protests, this time in politics. Josh, some astonishing information has come to light here about candidates talking about backing pro-Palestinian protests and talking about Auschwitz and even justifying the October the 7th terrorist attacks. Josh, it's astonishing. Tell us more.
Yeah, well, essentially what happened was that all the cranks who Keir Starmer has kicked out of Labour have now gone over to the Green Party, and they've seemingly been welcomed with open arms. The Green Party has taken them on board. They've been warned repeatedly, and been certainly when you saw the footage of the councillor winning and screaming Allahu Akbar, and they've just done nothing about it. In that now all of this evidence has come to light, and what are they going to do now? I think the closing of the nominations are today, and so what, they're going to find brand new candidates for all of those slots?
Yeah, that's it. They have until 5 o'clock today. Now, the Green Party has said they're taking these allegations seriously. They are serious and they're being treated as such. But it begs the question, How can people standing for public office be allowed to have opinions such as Auschwitz was justified, the October the 7th terrorist attacks was a false flag orchestrated by Israel, and some even compared Zionism to cancer?
Yeah, like I said, these people have been out there the whole time. They were shamefully let into Labour, and then you had the EHRC rule that Labour under Corbyn had broken the law and discriminated against Jews. Then they're like locusts. They jump onto one party, and now essentially a bunch of Islamists and a bunch of far left Marxist anti-Semites, and now they've jumped onto the Green Party. And it's like, what is the Green Party meant to be standing or supporting the environment? Because these two causes of anti-Semitism or anti-Israel have nothing to do with the environment. If anything, Israel is one of the world leaders in technology and water technology. Then you've got Hezbollah bombing Israel and causing these fires in the north of Israel, which are causing huge environmental damage. Yet these very same people, the green that they support is the green of the Hamas flag. Madness. And frankly, they deserve the same treatment that Labour got. EHRC should look into this, and one day maybe people will learn the lesson. Don't welcome these people on board. They will destroy your cause, in this case, environmentalism.
Do you think, to give them some credit, they're a relatively small party, their vetting procedures will be relatively lightweight compared to the bigger parties? We've seen that, bad apples can slip through the net. It's been brought to their attention. Do you have faith that this will be dealt with?
No, I don't, because I think people's egos are too much. And just from what we've seen from the deputy of the Green Party and this kind of flat out denial, when Jews like myself were pointing this out in Labour from sort of 2016 onwards, the problem was that people were so on the left, and I'm on the left, were so sort of morally sure of themselves and so pure that they couldn't conceive that there would be any bad apples on the same side as them. So they just went for flat out denial. And that's what you're going to see in the Green Party. They've already done it and made excuses for some of the shocking footage that we saw in the local council elections. Why are they not? That should have immediately been a red flag for them to. It's not that hard to just look at the social media posts of your nominees, and they obviously haven't done that. The fact that it's had to be pointed out to them shows how far behind they are on this issue.
OK, Josh Howie, thank you for joining us on the show again. It's just a shame that every time we talk, it's about anti-Semitism. Now, we have a spokesman for the Green Party who's given us a statement, and it says this: the allegations raised are serious and are being treated as such. At this stage, it would be inappropriate for us to comment further on the examples raised. The full list of all Green Party parliamentary candidates will be published on Friday, and the final list is still being decided. So the Green Party there implying they're still getting their ship in order. Now, next, we'll take a look ahead to tonight's big election debate. But first, it's time for your latest news headlines with Sam Francis.
4:32, the top stories from the newsroom this afternoon. The Prime Minister has been forced to apologise after he left a major D-Day international ceremony early yesterday. Instead, Rishi Sunak came back to the UK to film a TV interview, something he has now admitted was a mistake. Opposition leaders and some veterans have accused him of letting the country down. But Downing Street insists the Prime Minister's diary was set weeks ago before the general election was announced. Well, Labour is pledging to introduce a series of new schemes aimed at boosting the availability of mortgages for first-time buyers. Among the plans would be an expansion of the mortgage guarantee, meaning that if a bank repossesses a first-time buyer's home, the government would compensate some of its losses. The Conservative Party has also unveiled its own measures, including a pledge not to raise stamp duty. And the Liberal Democrats have been setting out their plans to make parental leave more flexible, including what they call a dad month. On the election trail today, Sir Ed Davies promising to double statutory maternity pay and encourage more fathers to take time off work. The Conservatives say they'll cut taxes for thousands of families. And the US president has warned against what he's called modern authoritarian threats as he marked the 80th anniversary of D-Day. Speaking in Normandy earlier, the president struck a contrast with his predecessor and urged people to stay true to the values fought for in World War II.
We're the fortunate heirs of a legacy of these heroes, those who scale the cliffs, point to Hawk, but we must also be the keepers of their mission. The keepers of their mission, the bearers of the flame of freedom that they kept burning bright. That is the truest testimonial to their lives. Our actions every day to ensure that our democracy endures and the soul of our nation endures.
Those are the top stories from the newsroom. Another update at 5 o'clock. In the meantime, sign up to GB News Alerts. Just scan the code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much, Sam. Now, in just a few minutes' time, I'll cross live to the venue of tonight's big election debate. If you thought it was bad enough when Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer talked over each other on Tuesday night, well, imagine what it's going to be like when 7 of them are at it tonight. If you want to get in touch with us, at GB News. And here's Bev Turner with all of the details.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family. Simply go to gbnews.com/your say.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, I'm John Vincent. Queues on the M62 westbound in West Yorkshire. It's all due to an earlier accident just before junction 28 Tingley. And in South Yorkshire, we're seeing slow traffic on the M1 northbound due to a broken down vehicle. That's between junction 32, the M18 interchange, and 33 for Catcliffe. Usual slow traffic on the M61 northbound in Lancashire just before junction 30 of the M6. Severe delays in Oxfordshire. The M40 northbound is closed between junction 9 Bicester and 10 the Cherwell Valley services for recovery work following an earlier overturned lorry. We're also seeing queues on surrounding routes, and it's stop-start on the southbound stretch of the M40. That's due to barrier repairs. Estimated travel time there around 60 minutes. And slow on the M1 southbound in Bedfordshire due to a broken down van just after junction 11A Dunstable.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
I've got a grade 3 astrocytoma brain tumour. Once I was diagnosed, I tried to do my claim with my insurance company and was rejected. They then also cancelled my life insurance and also cancelled my wife's policies as well.
And this is Zurich Insurance,
This
John.
is Zurich,
and
yeah.
their point was because you'd had some dizzy spells which you hadn't told them about.
Yeah.
They say dizzy spells equates to a
Well,
brain tumour, which there's no evidence to support that.
I was with King's College Hospital. They ignored them. King's College Hospital were the experts.
So you were expecting £25,000.
Yeah, that was a critical illness claim.
Critical illness, because you've got a critical illness.
critical
Clearly,
illness,
it couldn't be more critical, could it?
No.
Michelle, you've got a lovely, poorly husband, and you're also worrying about paying the bills and what the future holds.
Yeah.
What impact is this having on you on a day-to-day basis?
I try not to think too much about the future because it does upset me. I'm kind of thinking when John does go, I'm left with a mortgage to pay and 2 young children.
How old are your kids?
5 and 3.
Right.
So it's incredibly tough.
And are you working?
I haven't worked since having the children.
Right.
And that's a decision we made when we had children.
In the grand scheme of things, this amount of money is a drop in the
it's
ocean
nothing.
for a company like Zurich.
Yes, because I think they could they could make all this go away.
I've read some of the statement. We're sorry to hear of the very difficult circumstances Mr. Renlin's family are experiencing. You're terminally ill,
yeah, I know.
And they're calling that difficult circumstances.
Yeah.
The People's Channel.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians in the media, but it's actually about you.
And we won't ever forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
Now more than ever, it's important to hear
all sides as you make your decision ahead of polling day.
We're here for you. This is GB News.
The People's Channel,
Britain's election channel.
Welcome back. It's approaching 4:40. I'm Martin Daubney and this is GB News. Now, if your idea of a good Friday night in is watching politicians talk over each other, then you're in for a treat, because Penny Mordaunt and Angela Rayner will join the leaders of the Liberal Democrats, Reform UK, the Green Party, the SNP and Plaid Cymru in a televised debate later on this evening. And GB News' political editor Christopher Hope joins me now. And I believe, Chris, you're at the scene of the crime, as it were. You're outside the TV centre there, all getting ready. Now, Chris, ahead of this debate, of course, all of the conversation is about Rishi Sunak's D-Day blunder yesterday. We just had a Conservative MP on facing the music. It's being called their Gerald Ratner moment. Are you expecting that topic to dominate tonight's debate?
Hi Martin, welcome to the home of the BBC that we licence fees pay for, new broadcasting house here in central London. Yes, without question, the Prime Minister's judgment will be called into question in tonight's debate, the seven-way debate between all parties, minor parties and some representatives from the major parties. It's the only issue in town today, I'm afraid, because it goes to the heart of a judgment call around Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister. Why did he leave early? Why did he go to the UK part of the D-Day commemorations and not stay for the international ones? Why did he let David Cameron look like his Prime Minister? Why did he let his opponent in the election, Sir Keir Starmer, look prime ministerial? People are aghast it happened. I think the reaction is just getting worse, and the impact of what happened as people understand what happened yesterday and people reacting to it is getting worse. Ian Aitchison, who was the government's anti-extremism advisor, he has issued a statement or put out a letter which the BBC, which the Telegraph has seen, in which he completely takes apart what has happened here and says it's outrageous. He's resigned himself as a Tory party member. He said, in terms, it was an act of either colossal stupidity or cynical calculation. Either way, it revealed to me that while I still embrace a conservative philosophy, Martin, I'm no longer willing to have it outsourced to a bunch of mendacious, incompetent and disreputable clowns. Country before party, always. That's Ian Aitchison, the government's anti-extremism advisor. He's still there as in that advisor role, but he's quit as a Tory party member. And across the board, there will be real concern, I think, about the impact this might have. Some are saying it might lead to crossover in the polls. The moment that might happen when the Tory party goes into third place behind Reform UK. Now, Reform UK's leader, Nigel Farage, is in this debate, this seven-way debate. The Tory candidate representing the Prime Minister is Penny Mordaunt. Penny Mordaunt, of course, is a candidate in Portsmouth North, the home of the D-Day boats when they set sail. That's where I was with Sir Keir Starmer earlier this week. What will she say? She, of course, is tipped to be a future leader of the Tory party, someone who Number 10 has said not to trust. Will she try and hang the PM out to dry? That is a debate happening live here in New Broadcasting House, starting at 7:30, and I will have all of the wash-up in the spin room for GB News viewers straight after, so stay tuned.
Well, Chris Hope's a tantalising prospect. Will she loyally stand by her guns by Rishi Sunak, or will she wield that mighty sword? All eyes will be on that debate later on. Chris Hope, thanks for that update. Now, throughout the election campaign, we'll be hearing from people across the United Kingdom about what really matters to them. Real issues such as NHS waiting lists, immigration impact, the cost of living crisis, crime and policing. And our reporters have been to meet voters from all four nations, and we'll hear from them regularly before polling day on July the 4th. So today, for the first time, we meet Richard.
I'm Richard Abrahams,
56 years old, and I'm from Leeds. The issues that are important to me are business confidence. We have been in the window and door industry for over 50 years. And it's important to know that customers have the confidence to buy with confidence and do not worry that there is something potentially around the corner. Elmhurst, good morning, can I help you? The phones aren't ringing as they used to be. We need to restore confidence and have a government that will invest in SME businesses like ours. From a personal perspective, National Health Service, specifically mental health services, are very, very important. Men in particular are not getting the levels of service they need. I've previously voted Conservative, but now I'm changing to Labour. To me, it's time for a change, and I believe that Labour can do something to benefit not just me and the family business, but the economy overall. We have children of the ages of 23 and 24. We have done everything we can and sacrificed a few things to put them through the appropriate education, and we want them to be living in a world where they can earn good money, have a great living, and to be in an economy and a world that is safe.
But, you know, I absolutely love that. You know, just speaking to ordinary voters, being forthright. Richard from Leeds, business confidence that matters to him, and men's mental health provision. You know what, Richard? That's what got me into politics. I lost friends to male suicide. That started my journey. Good on you for speaking out. And look, all of those votes are up for grabs, and every political party should be taking this very, very seriously. Now, moving on, the 7th Duke of Westminster, otherwise known as Britain's most eligible bachelor. Well, he got away because he got hitched today, but an unexpected activist group targeted the wedding. Never mind Just Stop Oil, he tried to just stop the royals. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello again. Here's your latest GB News weather update brought to you by the Met Office. As we head ever closer to the weekend, it is going to be a bit showery for some of us, but there will be some bright or sunny spells around. The showery theme is due to an area of low pressure just to the north-northeast of us. This is dragging in some air from the northwest, which means it is also feeling a little fresh at times too. There are some various features making their way southeastwards as we go through today, and these will bring the focus for some showery bursts of rain, but nonetheless many of us likely to see a few spots of rain at times, particularly towards the north and west. Here the showers are going to be most frequent. However, further east, some clear skies are quite likely, and under these, temperatures taking a bit of a dip. It is going to be a bit of a fresh start first thing on Saturday morning for some of us. If we take a closer look at what we can expect first thing tomorrow morning then, and like I said, across parts of north-northwestern Scotland in particular, the showers are going to be pretty frequent. Some hail, some thunder possible here, and continuing as we go through the day. Even some sleet or snow perhaps over the highest peaks of the Scottish mountains. Further east, over eastern parts of Scotland, northeast England, a mostly dry picture here. A few showery outbreaks for Northern Ireland, and then across central, southern parts of England and Wales, we are going to have a front pushing its way southwards as we go through the day. It's not bringing a huge amount of rain, but it will bring some showery bursts. Eventually, that is going to clear away, with things turning a bit drier and perhaps even a bit sunnier across much of England and Wales as we go through tomorrow afternoon. Even some sunny spells developing across parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland, but still quite a few showers here, and all the time these could bring some hail and some thunder. Temperatures are looking similar to today. It is going to be a bit blustery at times and feeling a bit fresh for early June. As we go through tomorrow evening, we are going to see more showery rain across parts of Scotland, but drier further south, and with more clear skies. Again, it could be another chilly, perhaps even fresh start on Sunday morning. More showery rain to come as we go through the end of the weekend and into the beginning of next week. Bye-bye.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And why it matters to you. From your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you. Good afternoon, Britain. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's almost 10 to 5. I'm Martin Daubney and this is GB News. Now, the 7th Duke of Westminster, once dubbed one of Britain's most eligible bachelors, is officially off the market. Prince Harry was not in attendance. Shock horror. But activist group Just Stop Oil have targeted the wedding event today, and viewers on GB News can see the moment there when it happened. Well, former Royal correspondent Michael Cole joins me now. Michael, welcome to the show. Always a delight. Well, first of all, I thought you were Britain's most eligible bachelor. Michael, seems perhaps not your spoken for. But look, let's start with the good bit. Let's start with the pomp and the ceremony of the event before we go against these wazzocks that try to just stop the royals.
Yeah, I haven't been a bachelor for 56 years, Martin, but it's very nice of you to say what you just said. Now, look, Martin, all brides are beautiful. All weddings are special, but I think this wedding today took the Duchy original biscuit, not least because the man who owns the Duchy of Cornwall, Prince William, was there for an usher when these two beautiful people came out. Now, Hugh Grosvenor, who we see there, 33, the richest young man in England, the name Grosvenor in Old English, French, Norman French, means fat hunter. Well, I think the fat hunter just got caught, and there was a beautiful kiss with his beautiful bride, Olivia Henson, the daughter of a stockbroker, wearing a beautiful Grosvenor tiara made by Carl Fabergé in St. Petersburg in 1906. That's part of the beautiful entourage, the beautiful outfit that she has, with a veil there which goes back to 1880, worn by her great-great-grandmother in the Victorian era. And there we see such a lovely picture. He's a very popular man in Chester, not just because he bought the whole of the city ice cream today and decorated the city with flowers, but he does a lot in the local community. And of course, he went to school locally. His father, Gerald, had such a horrible time at Harrow School boarding that he decided that his children would not go away to board, and they didn't. And then he went on to Newcastle University. He, not the Oxbridge that you might have expected. And altogether, he's a good fellow, and one can only wish him well. There he is, going in to meet his fate, and looking very, very happy about it, with presumably that's his best man there. And of course, his mother, the Dowager Duchess of Westminster, Tilly, she was a big friend, a close friend of Diana, Princess of Wales, Prince Harry's mother. But Harry has stayed away. He's the third man, the missing third man. William was there, Hugh was there, but Harry was in Montecito in California on his hilltop Camelot. Why? Because, frankly, Prince William doesn't want to be in the same room with his younger brother. Even if that room is a cathedral, he won't put up with it. And as he was an usher, they wanted to avoid the possibility that Prince William would have to show his younger brother to his place in the congregation. So a bad lookout from the royal family, but a very, very happy day for the Grosvenors. I understand that Hugh, who likes to be known as Hughie, had a chat with Prince Harry on the phone, and they decided that diplomatically it would be very much the best way if Harry stayed away from the wedding, because it would have taken...
Now, Michael, we didn't get the orange-haired prince, but we did get the orange powder flung in the air from Just Stop Oil. We've got a quick minute. Tell us about those wazzocks.
Awful. Stop Oil. It's got nothing to do with them. And why would they try? Martin, it's sheer bad manners. And then they issue a mealy-mouthed statement afterwards saying, well, whatever they said, it was inane, inappropriate, completely unnecessary. And of course, it alarmed those people there from Chester and further afield who'd come to see a great and loving spectacle. These people stop oil, whatever their credentials, they do themselves no good at all. In fact, they really annoy the rest of us.
Okay, I'm afraid it's time to just stop Michael Cole, a thing I never like doing. I'm afraid we've simply ran out of time. Always an absolute delight, and that's all for this hour. But in a few minutes' time, I'll be joined by the former Tory MP who says that she faced persistent bullying from the local Conservative Federation officers over the years. We'll have that exclusive next. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's news channel. But now it's your weather with Alex Burkill.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again. Here's your latest GB News weather update brought to you by the Met Office. As we head ever closer to the weekend, it is going to be a bit showery for some of us, but there will be some bright or sunny spells around. The showery theme is due to an area of low pressure just to the north-northeast of us. This is dragging in some air from the northwest, which means it is also feeling a little fresh at times too. There are some various features making their way southeastwards as we go through today, and these will bring the focus for some showery bursts of rain, but nonetheless many of us likely to see a few spots of rain at times, particularly towards the north and west. Here the showers are going to be most frequent. However, further east, some clear skies are quite likely, and under these, temperatures taking a bit of a dip. It is going to be a bit of a fresh start first thing on Saturday morning for some of us. If we take a closer look at what we can expect first thing tomorrow morning then, and like I said, across parts of northwestern Scotland in particular, the showers are going to be pretty frequent. Some hail, some thunder possible here, and continuing as we go through the day. Even some sleet or snow perhaps over the highest peaks of the Scottish mountains. Further east, over eastern parts of Scotland, northeast England, a mostly dry picture here. A few showery outbreaks for Northern Ireland, and then across central southern parts of England and Wales, we are going to have a front pushing its way southwards as we go through the day. It's not bringing a huge amount of rain, but it will bring some showery bursts. Eventually that is going to clear away, with things turning a bit drier and perhaps even a bit sunnier across much of England and Wales as we go through tomorrow afternoon. Even some sunny spells developing across parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland, but still quite a few showers here, and all the time these could bring some hail and some thunder. Temperatures are looking similar to today. It is going to be a bit blustery at times and feeling a bit fresh for early June. As we go through tomorrow evening, we are going to see more showery rain across parts of Scotland, but drier further south, and with more clear skies. Again, it could be another chilly, perhaps even fresh start on Sunday morning. More showery rain to come as we go through the end of the weekend and into the beginning of next week. Bye-bye.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, I'm John Vincent. The usual slow traffic in Lancashire on the M61 northbound just before junction 30 of the M6. Severe delays in Oxfordshire. The M14 northbound is closed between junction 9, Bicester, and 10, the Cherwell Valley services for recovery work following an earlier overturned lorry. We're also seeing slow traffic on the southbound stretch of the M40 just up to Bicester for emergency barrier repairs, and we're seeing congestion on surrounding routes. Slow for the M5 northbound in the West Midlands up towards junction 8 of the M6. Slow traffic in Surrey for the M25 clockwise. It's due to an accident just after junction 8 Reigate, and we're seeing slow traffic in Bedfordshire on the M1 south. There's a lane closed for a broken down van just after junction 11A Dunstable. And that's the latest traffic and travel news.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
We've got summer sewn up with an incredible trio of treats, and you could win them. First, there's a fabulous £15,000 in tax-free cash to ensure this summer is special. What would you spend that on? Next, you'll also receive the latest iPhone 15 and a set of Apple AirPods. And finally, £500 to spend at your favourite UK attraction. Fun in the sun could be on us. For a chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, Text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes, she could have said Stump. You made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere. Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different. Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
A very good afternoon to you. It's 5 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show on GB News. We're broadcasting live from the heart of Westminster, all across the UK. On today's show, the problems keep piling up for the Tories. There's been a huge backlash against Rishi Sunak after he decided to leave D-Day commemorations in Normandy yesterday to attend a TV interview. And the Prime Minister's apologised, but is it his darkest hour? Next up, Greek police are still scouring the island of Simi in a desperate search for Michael Mosley. Sniffer dogs, drones and even helicopters have now been deployed to locate the much-loved TV doctor who disappeared on a walk 2 days ago. We'll have all of the latest. And 27 European Union member states are taking to the polls today in what Brussels is calling the last chance to save democracy. But with a huge swing to the right in the Netherlands and many others surely set to follow, is the writing on the wall for the European Union. I'll be joined by a Dutch MEP who says there's a revolution in the air. And that's all coming between now and 6 o'clock. I've also got a big breaking news story for you now. In a few moments' time, I'll be joined by former Tory MP Jo Gideon, who says that she faced persistent bullying from the local Conservative Federation officers over the years. And I want to hear from you also. Send your views and post your comments by visiting gbnews.com/your say. But before all of that, it's time for your headlines with Sam Francis.
Martin, thank you very much and good afternoon to you. It's just coming up to 2 minutes past 5. Leading the news tonight, veterans, opposition parties and some of the Prime Minister's own MPs have criticised him for leaving yesterday's D-Day commemorations early. Rishi Sunak has apologised and admitted it was a mistake, but insists it shouldn't be politicised and said that his diary was set weeks ago before the general election was announced.
On reflection, that was a mistake and I apologise. I think it's important, though, given the enormity of the sacrifice made, that we don't politicise this. The focus should rightly be on the veterans who gave so much. I had the honour and privilege of speaking to many of them and their families, hearing their stories, expressing my gratitude personally to them. But I'm someone who will always admit when I've made a mistake. That's what you'll always get from me.
Standing on the cliffs that US soldiers scaled on D-Day, Joe Biden was warning today against modern authoritarian threats. Speaking in Normandy earlier, the US president stressed the need to support Ukraine and drew contrasts with his rival Donald Trump. He urged people to stay true to the values that were fought for in World War II.
We're the fortunate heirs of the legacy of these heroes. Those who scale the cliffs point to Hawk. We must also be the keepers of their mission, the keepers of their mission, the bearers of the flame of freedom that they kept burning bright. That is the truest testimonial to their lives. Our actions every day to ensure that our democracy endures and the soul of our nation endures.
Turning now to election news, and Rishi Sunak has denied lying over claims that a Labour government would raise taxes by £2,000 per household. The Prime Minister said during a televised debate that the figure had been checked by independent Treasury officials. The Treasury's Permanent Secretary has suggested that figure isn't a full representation of its estimates. Both the Conservatives and Labour have pledged not to increase income tax, national insurance or rise VAT. Elsewhere on the campaign trail today, Labour is pledging to introduce a series of new schemes aimed at boosting the availability of mortgages for first-time buyers. Among those plans would be an expansion of the mortgage guarantee, meaning that if a bank repossesses a first-time buyer's house, the government would compensate some of its losses. Well, the Conservative Party has also unveiled its own measures, including a pledge not to raise stamp duty.
This is a game changer. If you're a young couple and you want to have the security of a roof, your own roof over your head, this is a game changer, because many of those people, let's say a young couple, both on a reasonable wage, will be paying a fortune in rent, and because of that they can't afford to save for a deposit. And if you don't have a parent who can help you out, that means you're never going to get on the housing ladder.
And the Liberal Democrats have been setting out their plans to make parental leave more flexible, including what they call a dad month. On the election trail today, Sir Ed Davey's promising to double statutory maternity pay and to encourage more fathers to take time off work. The Conservatives say they'll cut taxes for thousands of families. However, Lib Dem spokesperson for Education, Children and Young People, Munira Wilson, says families need more choice and flexibility.
There's lots of parents up and down the country, both mums and dads, who'd love to take more time off work in those early months for their children's first smile, first steps, first words, but just simply can't afford to do so because statutory pay at the moment is less than half the minimum wage if you were working full time. So we'd double statutory maternity and shared parental pay. We'd also increase paternity pay to 90% of earnings with a cap, but also we would look to increase paternity leave pay, which is very low at the moment, again to 90% of earnings.
And just a reminder that in a few hours we will see leading figures from the 7 major political parties go head-to-head in the second televised debate of the general election campaign so far. We will, of course, bring you all the reaction live here on GB News throughout the course of this evening. And in other news, new CCTV footage appears to show missing TV doctor Michael Mosley on the day that he went missing while on holiday on the Greek island of Symi. If you're watching on TV here, you can see that shot, which appears to show Mr Mosley walking through a nearby village. The presenter, who's known for appearing on programmes like The One Show and the podcast Just One Thing, hasn't been seen since Wednesday. It's understood he left his phone where he was staying. Local police paused their operation to find him last night, but have now continued with reinforcements, including sniffer dogs, divers and drones to scan the island, which is about 25 miles north of Rhodes. And a Just Stop Oil protester has set off a fire extinguisher outside the Duke of Westminster's wedding today, where Prince William was an usher. It happened as billionaire Hugh Grosvenor and his new wife, Olivia Henson, were leaving a ceremony at Chester Cathedral. They did, though, manage to wave to media and the public as they left, with thousands of people lining the streets to watch. For the latest stories, sign up to GB News Alerts. You can scan the QR code on your screen, or, of course, go to our website, gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Sam. Now we start this hour with big breaking news, because in the last hour, former Tory MP for Stoke-on-Trent Central, Jo Gideon, has posted on social media accusing her local Conservative branch of persistent bullying. She went on to say that CCHQ and the party whips failed to take any meaningful action to protect her. Now, the former Tory MP for Stoke-on-Trent Central, Jo Gideon, joins me now. Jo, welcome to the show. It's a delight to have your company. It's a shame it's in such circumstances. So, Jo, let's just spell out, if we can, the timeline here, because you initially stood down, didn't you? You issued a statement in February of last year. You were the second of the Red Waller MPs to stand down, one of the early ones. And you said at the time, I have not taken this decision lightly. And now, Jo, it seems something rather more sinister was going on behind the scenes. Please, can you tell us more?
Indeed. So I got wind of the fact that I was likely to be deselected, and it followed really probably since I was elected, a lack of support from the small number who formed the local federation. And so I took the decision that I would make a dignified exit rather than being humiliated, having been treated so badly over the 3.5 years before the reselection. Out of loyalty to the party, I was deliberately sort of vague about the reason, because I thought that they would go on to sort it out. They didn't, and I feel that now is the time that I have to set the record straight, because I don't want to leave Stoke-on-Trent with people thinking that I chose to go. I would have loved to have stood again to be their MP for the next term, and I would have fought a good fight, and I really felt the need to set the record straight.
And Joe, I can sense in your tone your a huge emotion. This must be a very, very difficult thing to do. You're a party loyalist. You have been for many, many years. This can't have been a decision that you took lightly this time around either. Can you tell me some of the detail about the kind of bullying you claim you were subjected to?
I mean, I really don't want to go into detail, and it is painful. But I think that the party was well aware of it, and they kind of kicked it into the long grass repeatedly. And it got to the stage where, I literally had no support, no funding to do anything. Nobody talked to me. And if I give you an indication, since I announced that I wasn't re-standing, nobody from the local federation has spoken to me. It's been well over a year. So that really kind of goes to show. And I find it weird that the current candidate has nothing from me in his election literature. So nothing saying I'm going to carry on the good work of the local MP. And yet locally people say, I've been a good constituency. I mean, I've given it my all, and I've really done my utmost. And I am passionate about public service. And so I wanted to go on record to say, I am really sorry that I couldn't fight against, a wall of people who just kind of didn't want me there. And it was only, let's say, a handful of people in the local party versus so many constituents and wonderful people and wonderful organisations that have been so positive to me in the last 4.5 years.
So, Joe, do you feel this was like a joined up, a concerted campaign to try and get you out, to get a more favoured candidate in? Was it personal? Was it political? What do you think drove it?
Genuinely, I think that, Stoke Central was a constituency that we were never supposed to win. It wasn't a target seat in 2019. Nobody thought it was winnable. And so they picked somebody that they knew very little about, somebody not from Stoke. I moved up from Ashford in Kent, and nobody expected I would be there longer than 6 weeks. And so when I did win, I sensed very, very strongly that there was a resentment that this person from the outside had won. And that never really changed. So, I basically focused totally on what I can do as an individual with my fabulous team around me to support me, what I was able to do for the local community, rather than worrying about the local politics. But I was very disappointed that at a national party level that nothing changed. And I now see that this is a pattern that other people have experienced, and it goes to the heart of why I felt I had to speak out. I must stress that this isn't in any way anti-conservative, and I wish all my former colleagues the best of luck in their campaigns, and I hope as many of them as possible get re-elected. But this is about the party tackling internal problems that mean that that it's not a fair and equitable party for the diverse range of candidates and future MPs that they need to have.
And this is about a duty of care. Any organisation needs to take care of its employees, of its reports, and you feel that that duty of care simply failed?
Absolutely, absolutely, and it wasn't for want of me flagging it up, because I've done that over the last, say, pretty much most of the 4.5 years. I mean, I am that sort of person that will soldier on, regardless. And when people ask me, would I recommend being an MP to other people, I would say the job itself is fantastic and it's a massive honour, but the background to what you have to cope with is something that for me was incredibly stressful. And I just want to make it change for other people going forward.
And Jo, are you able to verbalise your emotions today, how you're feeling?
I'm feeling very sad that this is the end of my parliamentary career, because I feel that I've worked out exactly how things work and what needs to be done. And as I say, so many people have said to me, you're exactly the sort of MP that we need. You're approachable. You've got a background in small business and community, and we need more people like you. And it felt as though they were kind of saying, so it's a shame you stood down, as if it was something voluntary. So I wanted them to know that's not how it was, and I would have loved to have gone on serving, and I'm really sorry that I couldn't.
OK, Jo Gideon, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I know that can't have been easy for you. I know you thought long and hard about putting this out there, but thank you very, very much, and I hope you find peace. Thank you. Now, a Conservative spokesman has said this: "We thank Jo Gideon for the fantastic work she did as the MP for Stoke Central and wish her well for the future. Throughout the 4 years Jo has been an MP, she has brought in millions of pounds in investment and been a proud champion of her constituents in Westminster. We have a wide range of candidates standing at this election from a variety of backgrounds and walks of life." Well, there's a lot to unpack there, and let's speak with our political editor, Chris Hope. Chris, welcome to the show. You must have overheard that there. Jo Gideon, very, very emotional, saying she felt sad, she felt heartbroken, she felt let down by her local Conservative Party. What's your reaction to that? It was quite harrowing to listen to.
Yeah, and deeply emotional and moving. Now, the Jo Gideon statement is clearly timed for after nominations close for all candidates at the general election. That was at 4 p.m. today, so we're trying to work out who exactly is standing in lots of Tory seats. But Jo Gideon's statement on Facebook, which I've been reading, is a difficult read for the Tory party. It says here, by populating our more winnable seats with ever more political careerist candidates who have little experience outside the Westminster bubble, with fewer women, less diversity in age, social background and professional experience, we are creating a democratic deficit, she says, which will dictate the quality of our politics for years to come. Jo Gideon, she's finally got her say. She's been quite decent about it. She hasn't tried to do this for damaging the party in the run-up to the election. Now she can't stand. She's leaving politics. I think it's food for thought for the Tory party on a day when really it's all falling apart for them again. I'm here now in Broadcasting House in London, getting ready for the 7-way leaders' debates. All the leaders of the smaller parties will be debating with representatives of the bigger parties. I think Angela Rayner for Labour, of course, Penny Mordaunt for the Tory party. But there's only one issue in town, and that's why on earth did the Prime Minister bail out of the D-Day commemorations halfway through. He went to the UK part of it earlier this week and then came back yesterday missing the international element, leaving David Cameron, the unelected Foreign Secretary, the peer, to stand in for him. Had Sir Keir Starmer done this, imagine the way the Tories would have used it, weaponised it against him, showing how he doesn't really care that much about the veterans and this nation's defence. But for the Prime Minister to do it and allow Sir Keir Starmer to remain there and look prime ministerial 3 or 4 weeks out from an election day beggars belief for many Tories. We've heard from Ian Aitchison, who is the government's extremism advisor. He's issued a withering statement, an assessment of his party. He was a Conservative Party member, and now he's not. And it just carries on. I think at this event tonight, when Penny Mordaunt, the former female Defence Secretary, the former MP for Portsmouth North, candidate in the same seat, the home of the D-Day, all the commemorations in the UK, she will have a hard time defending the Prime Minister, and not least because she may well be the next Tory party leader. So what she says now will resonate with members.
Absolutely, Chris. So all eyes on that debate. Will she stand by her guns loyally, or will she wield that mighty sword? And to discuss that further, I'm now joined in the studio by the senior politics editor at The New Statesman, George Eaton. George, always a pleasure to have your company in the studio. All eyes on that debate now, and what a tantalising prospect it is. There's only one story in town, an immense own goal by Rishi Sunak, and all eyes now will be on Penny Mordaunt. She's going to have to answer for the Prime Minister. She fancies herself as a potential future leader. Tantalising prospect.
Absolutely, and she's got strong connections to the armed forces, MP in Portsmouth, strong naval presence there. She carried the sword at the coronation, so she is a sort of totemic figure. And there were rumours before the election that she might even mount a challenge to Rishi Sunak. So it'll be very interesting to see what she does, because very few people expect Rishi Sunak to be Prime Minister after the election. So therefore, she doesn't have a huge incentive to show personal loyalty to him. She'll be defending the Conservative Party, but it'll be very interesting to see what she does, or whether she simply feels, given she's up against Nigel Farage, Angela Rayner, who, for different reasons, are looking to eviscerate the Conservatives at the next election. Will she feel she needs to put up a strong defence?
And Angela Rayner, in particular, would have been a target, rightly so. It's an open debate. It's the rough and tumble. It's cut and thrust. The Labour Party must be breathing a huge sigh of relief. Like, all of a sudden, the spotlight is squarely on the Conservatives. There are 7 people, 6 of them for sure will all be training their guns on the Conservative candidate Penny Mordaunt.
It really is a gift to Labour. I mean, one of Keir Starmer's mantras during this campaign has been country before party. And this really gives Labour a chance to say, we are country before party. Rishi Sunak is not. I mean, I think it's some are describing it as a gaffe. I think it was worse than a gaffe, because he took a calculated decision not to stay for the entire ceremony. A gaffe is something such as not struggling to use a card machine in the way Rishi Sunak has. This is bad. I think it's actually even worse than the Mrs. Duffy incident, Gordon Brown stuff, in terms of its political ramifications.
And in terms of the political hay that may be made out of it tonight by the Labour Party, there's been an all-day meeting today, the manifesto under wraps. Do you think we can expect to hear anything from Angela Rayner about what the Labour Party might have to offer? They're going to show us some medals tonight.
I would imagine she'll steer clear of surprises, although I know the manifesto will have a lot more to say on childcare, for instance.
On Palestine, there's a contentious point in there. I mean, she might get attacked for that tonight.
Yes, she might. It'll be interesting to see if Penny Mordaunt goes for Labour on that. But the risk for the Conservatives is that this becomes a punishment debate. Some are calling this a punishment election. The risk for Penny Mordaunt is that all of them are training their fire on her.
And in terms of the polling, so polls are coming out this afternoon. We've talked about this crossover point. The Reform Party only a couple of points behind. Of course, Labour still way out in front, got like a 21-point lead, seems unassailable at the moment. What's happened with Rishi Sunak and Nigel Farage will no doubt be trying to make hay tonight. Do you think that the last few days' events, particularly yesterday's events, are now really going to be putting the Conservatives on that point where we might see that crossover?
The coincidence of Nigel Farage entering the campaign and the D-Day debacle is terrible for Rishi Sunak, because this is the moment at which Reform are looking to win over disillusioned Tories. Well, if you're a disillusioned Tory, then you're going to be even more disillusioned after today. So it's a complete gift to Farage and Reform.
George Eaton, always an absolute delight to have your company and your opinions. Thanks for joining us in the studio here on GB News. Now, let's get back now to our political editor, Chris Hope. He's got some breaking news for us. Chris, what have you got?
Yes, I think so, to a certain degree. That's right. Thanks for coming back to me so quickly, Martin. David Frost, Lord Frost, the key ally to Boris Johnson, the Brexiteer, the architect of the Brexit deal, will not be standing in this general election on July the 4th. There have been some dispute about whether he'd been blocked. We spoke to Rishi Sunak on that flight back from Belfast to the UK shortly after the election was called, he made clear that Lord Frost was not blocked from standing, despite being a critic of the government in recent months. But despite that apparent lifting of that blockade, he is not going to resign as a peer to stand in the July the 4th general election. He's made very clear he's going to carry on as a peer. He's told The Telegraph today, I'm grateful for the Prime Minister for lifting the block on me, applying for a Commons seat that's been in place since February, he says. However, I will not be standing for the Commons in this election, and intend to remain in the House of Lords. So another, some would say, a rather sound Tory, someone who believes in low tax, Brexit, all these things, is not going to be in the Commons after the July 4th election.
If that is Lord Frost keeping his powder dry, maybe a lot of those Conservatives will be standing by and watching this election, and maybe their time will be after the election.
That could well be the case. Of course, Boris Johnson has made clear he's on... Sorry, Martin. Boris Johnson made clear he's on holiday. He's not expected to be campaigning.
Thank you very much, mate. We've got to move on. Chris Hope, superb. Thanks for that breaking news. Now, coming up, the search intensifies for missing TV personality Michael Mosley on an island in Greece. We'll bring you all the latest. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians and the media, but it's actually about you. We won't forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
More than ever, it's important to hear all sides
as you make your decision in the run-up to polling day.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel. Britain's election channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
In places like News Corp, right, an organisation I know reasonably well, when that poor guy died in America,
George Floyd, you're talking about?
Yes, they had a 9-minute silence for him, right? A more absurd and ridiculous idea I'd never come across in my life. How do you feel about 9 minutes for George Floyd?
Well, of course, that's the length of time that he was strangled by a police officer.
I know why it was, but how do you feel about that?
Well, I think a lot of the black staff, in particular in News Corp, probably appreciated the fact that it was taking a stand. And if you look at businesses...
Why do they need to take a stand about what the police do in the United States
well, what
of
about
America?
the guy... What about the jeweller tonight who has died in Richmond in Surrey when two, how should we put them, hoodlums of colour actually had a chokehold? He went home and he killed himself. There are lots of things going on in our world, as you well know, which are very upsetting.
OK.
And if we're going to stop every time that somebody dies in unfortunate circumstances, we'll never get any work done.
Well, Stella, a final word to you.
I think sometimes, yes, equality and diversity can be a waste of money when it goes to things that are not necessary for the function of the organisation. But when just last year you had Birmingham Council being pushed into bankruptcy because they were found out to not have given women equal wages,
then because they paid bin men more than they paid cooks.
But then you can see Ben's point that if they had someone who was looking appropriately in equality and diversity and the actual practical policy implications of what they were doing, then maybe you wouldn't have this situation. You wouldn't have this legal liability. That's what Ben is saying. This is a multi-million pounds organisation. Like, it needs to have someone looking seriously and taking responsibility for these decisions.
The People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's almost 5:28. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News. Now, later this hour, look ahead to England's last game before Euro 2024. After 58 years, is football finally coming home? Now, there's been an update in the search for TV doctor and columnist Michael Mosley. Newly released CCTV footage shows the TV doctor going for a walk just half an hour after he left his wife at a beach on the Greek island of Symi. And divers and sniffer dogs have been engaged in an intensifying search to locate the 67-year-old British national who was reported to have vanished after going for a coastal hike on Wednesday. And let's find out more now from the former Scotland Yard Inspector Hamish Brown, MBE. Hamish, welcome to the show. So we're 2 days deep now into this search. The island of Symi is relatively small. It's only about a fifth the size of the Isle of Wight. Do you think, with all the efforts the Greek authorities are putting in, which seems substantial, do you think now the search may be starting to look a little bit forlorn?
Well, you correctly mentioned the efforts made by the search parties, and go to that in just a moment. But I want to start off by saying the police, no doubt, and I implore the public in this country to keep an open mind. So those conspiracy theorists, just keep off the internet. You're just going to cause offence to people. Cut it out, and let's wait till we're working on facts, and we'll take it further from there. So you correctly mentioned the search teams, the police are out there, the firefighters actually searching, the sea as well. Of course, they have divers out. These are proper things, drones, the use of dogs, all that sort of thing. So yes, it'll be certainly a very thorough job. Now, Dr. Mosley's wife, Claire, she's out there. So I have no doubt the police will be in contact with her, comforting her. They may well have specially trained police officers for this. I don't know. I understand that she has looked at CCTV. That's from news reports. I'm not sure she's made any sort of identification at all. So we'll just have to wait and see.
And Hamish, and as far as what we hear, drones in the air, search helicopters, divers in the water, sniffer dogs, a manned response, this seems a perfectly adequate and thorough response in your eyes.
Well, that's what I would expect, and I don't know the Greek authorities, of course, but I'm sure they will do a thorough job, and that they know that this will be international coverage, and they'll be under spotlight themselves. But as far as Claire, the wife, is concerned, I believe the Foreign Office has been in touch with her, and that they'll keep her up to date with any information they have. I don't think there'll be any need for the local police in this country to be involved. Sometimes they are, but if the local police are needed to contact other relatives or make any inquiries or anything like that, then the Greek authorities will be in touch with that police force, who I know will just get on with it. So that's all that can be done. There has been an appeal to the public. Have you seen this person? I mean, it was a steep terrain. It was desperately hot. So there are sort of aggravating factors, if you like. It wasn't a simple matter of just going for a short walk. So we'll have to wait and see. But I can only emphasise the point about the conspiracy theorists. It upsets a lot of people. It sends people in the wrong direction and does no good whatsoever. It isn't a laugh at all. It's a very worrying time for Dr. Mosley's wife and his family and friends. So please, a little bit of dignity.
Very well put. Thank you for saying that. Former Scotland Yard Inspector Hamish Brown, MBE. Thanks for joining us on the show. Now, there's lots more still to come between now and 6 o'clock, and I'll talk to a Dutch MEP shortly about the European Union elections, where voters across the continent have turned their backs on the traditional parties. But first, it's your news headlines with Sam Francis.
5:32, a look at the headlines from the newsroom tonight. And first, we'll start with some breaking news coming to us out of Liverpool Crown Court this evening, where a man who opened fire with an AK-47 machine gun at a cinema complex in the city earlier this year has today been jailed for 14 years. Leslie Garrett opened fire at the theatre in the Croxteth area on the 3rd of January. No one was injured in that incident. The 49-year-old, though, had previously pleaded guilty to weapons offences and attempted robbery. To election news, and the Prime Minister has apologised for what opposition parties have suggested is the biggest gaffe of the general election campaign so far. Rishi Sunak's been heavily criticised for leaving D-Day commemorations in Normandy early for a TV interview. He's admitted that it was a mistake, but insists it shouldn't be politicised and that his diary was set weeks ago before the general election was announced. Joe Biden has warned against what he called modern authoritarian threats as he marked the 80th anniversary of D-Day. Standing on the cliffs that US soldiers scaled in Normandy, the US president stressed the need to support Ukraine and drew contrasts with his rival Donald Trump, urging people to stay true to the values fought for in World War II. CCTV images have been released of TV doctor Michael Mosley half an hour after he left a Greek beach and went missing. If you're watching on TV, you can see the footage here showing him wearing a T-shirt, shorts, a cap and holding an umbrella. He was on holiday with his wife when he disappeared after going for a walk on Wednesday, leaving his phone behind. The presenter, who's known for appearing on programmes like The One Show and the podcast Just One Thing, hasn't been seen since that date. Sniffer dogs, divers and drones are now scanning the island, which is about 25 miles north of Rhodes. For the latest stories, sign up to GB News Alerts. You can scan the code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
And a final look at the markets for this week. The pound will buy you $1.2724 and €1.1773. The price of gold tonight is £1,816.74 per ounce. And the FTSE 100 has closed the day at 8,245 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Well, cheers, Sam, and it's officially summer, and we've got a brand new summer giveaway for you now. That's £15,000 tax-free to make summer spectacular. A brand new iPhone, AirPods and £500 tax-free to spend at the UK attraction of your choice. So if your game is theme parks or visiting stately homes, or if you fancy a spa day out, then it could be on us here at GB News. And here's all the details that you need to enter.
It's the Great British Summer Giveaway, and have we got a prize for you? There's a totally tax-free £15,000 in cash to make your summer spectacular. Spend that extra cash however you like. You'll also win a brand new iPhone, Apple AirPods, and if that wasn't enough, a £500 voucher to spend at your favourite UK attraction, so you can enjoy amazing days out this year. For a chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Now, in a few moments' time, I'll speak to a Dutch MEP about a political revolution that's happening in the Netherlands. But first, there's a new way to get in touch with us here at GB News. And here's Bev Turner with all the details.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family. Simply go to gbnews.com/your say.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, I'm Johnny Ratner. There are long queues heading south down the M1 through County Durham from junction 58 to 57 towards Darlington. And that's where a vehicle is having its tyres changed, blocking off the left lane. The M1 in Derbyshire remains blocked northbound junction 29 to 29A near Chesterfield after 3 lorries were involved in an accident of a car. That's causing long queues back to the A38 and the other way and on surrounding routes, not being helped by the roadworks in the area. On the M40, there are northbound queues, junction 9 to 10 heading north of Bicester after a lorry shed its load earlier on. And the Surrey stretch of the M25 continues to crawl clockwise after an earlier collision just after the Reigate turn-off. It's queuing back to the M23. Dorset south of Shaftesbury, the A350 shut between West Melbury and Compton Abbas, and expect disruption on ferries from Dover to Calais because of strike action on the port of Calais today. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
As he kissed her goodbye with...
Ian Phoenix was in charge of a counter-terrorism group dedicated to bringing peace to Northern Ireland. He was a husband and a father.
He was a real Irishman. He had the twinkly Irish eyes. He enjoyed a good joke. He liked a good glass of wine.
Susan Phoenix first heard of the accident that killed her husband on her car radio.
I was just driving along going, no, no, no. I can still see it. I can still feel it, even 30 years on.
On the 2nd of June 1994, the Chinook helicopter that was taking them to a peace conference crashed into the side of a mountain on the Mull of Kintyre, killing 4 crew and 25 of the country's top counter-terrorism experts. At a board of inquiry, the Ministry of Defence concluded there was no doubt whatsoever the accident had been caused by the gross negligence of the 2 pilots, Flight Lieutenants Richard Cook and Jonathan Tapper. But there was doubt. Plenty of it. There were no eyewitnesses on that foggy night, no flight data recorder, no voice recorder. It took until 2011 for the Ministry of Defence to admit they had not a shred of evidence. At the time of the crash, systematic errors in the software that controlled the engines had been reported. The MOD had seen its safety budget slashed in the run-up to the accident. In a statement, the Ministry of Defence told GB News, in 2010, the Mull of Kintyre independent review was carried out and the findings were fully accepted. The review did not find new evidence to suggest mechanical failure, and no safety issues with the Chinook Mark II were raised in the report. This weekend, the families have formed the Chinook Justice Campaign. But justice may never come.
The People's Channel.
This is GB News and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians in the media, but actually it's about you.
And we won't forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
More than ever, it's important to hear
all sides
as you make your decision ahead of polling day.
We're here for you.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's election channel.
Welcome back. It's 5:40. I'm Martin Daubney and this is GB News. Now, it's a huge week on the continent this week, as many of you will know. It's exactly 5 years ago since I was elected as an MEP for the West Midlands for the Brexit Party. There I am on the night of my election. Let's check out one of my favourite moments from my time in the European Parliament.
Surely it is time for the budget to be audited externally with full transparency, because at present we cannot trust the EU with our income tax nor our VAT. With the EU, there's no money back, nor guarantee. I put it to you, Madam Speaker, that only fools and horses would sign off the 2020 budget. Thank you.
We had some merry mischief. I also called Guy Verhofstadt Darth Vader. I almost miss it. But on a serious point, there has been a huge change in mood in the European Parliament as populist parties are expected to gain many more seats. And it looks like there is already large gains for the populist nationalist parties in the Netherlands. And to discuss that, I'm now joined by Rob Roos, who's an independent MEP in the Netherlands. Rob, always a delight. Still looking well turned out and debonair as ever, Rob. So last night, yesterday, the Dutch went to the polls. You went first. You went up the ladder first. Something extraordinary happened. We've seen some exit polls, Rob, overnight. Tell us what happened.
Yes, we had the elections yesterday, and there is an increase of EU critical seats in the European Parliament. we had 29 seats we have that now, but for the next mandate we will have 31 seats, and there is an increase of 9 seats of EU critical parties. So that's a big win.
And in particular, the exit polls appear to be showing that Geert Wilders' part of the PVV is projected to get 7 seats versus 1 in 2019. That's a gain of +6. And an extraordinary thing I saw, Rob, when we looked at the top concerns amongst voters as they were leaving the polls in the Netherlands, they painted a very, very interesting picture. Rob, tell us, what were Dutch voters most motivated by?
Well, it is still a provisional result. It may still change until the final result will be announced on Sunday evening, in order not to influence voting behavior in the other member states. The final results will be announced on Sunday evening. So it still can change. PVV is now indeed on 7, but it can be 6, unfortunately. And the Socialist Green Party is at 9, but they can gain 1 seat and go to. And they are now on 8, but they can go to 9. But still, it is a big win, and. But unfortunately, only 38% of the PVV voters, the party of Geert Wilders, who are EU critics, went to the polling station compared to the national elections, while the 83% of the Socialists and the Greens, they merged in our national parliament, who are very in favor of an ever closer union, went out to vote yesterday compared to the national election. So even with a very low turnout of the EU critical voters, it's still a very big win. And partly to express the reason that the turnout of the pro-EU is much higher is that to express their support for the EU, they always did, and partly to express their disgust of at the position of power that the PVV has acquired due to the result of November 22, and that the PVV will now become a party in the center of the power here in the Netherlands. But still, it's a very big win for the EU critical parties.
OK, Rob Bruce, and we're expecting to see those results rolling over the next weekend into Monday. Could there be a political revolution across the European bloc? Could there be the spirit of Brexit flying high? Rob Bruce, thank you very much for joining us, an independent MEP for the Netherlands, and we'll, of course, have much more on this next week. Full results analysis here on my show on GB News. 5 years to the day since I was elected myself. Now, coming up, England manager Gareth Southgate has axed some key players ahead of his 26-man squad for the Euros. Did he do the right thing? I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's News Channel.
Hello again. Here's your latest GB News weather update brought to you by the Met Office. As we head ever closer to the weekend, it is going to be a bit showery for some of us, but there will be some bright or sunny spells around. The showery theme is due to an area of low pressure just to the north-northeast of us. This is dragging in some air from the northwest, which means it is also feeling a little fresh at times too. There are some various features making their way southeastwards as we go through today, and these will bring the focus for some showery bursts of rain, but nonetheless many of us likely to see a few spots of rain at times, particularly towards the north and west. Here the showers are going to be most frequent. However, further east, some clear skies are quite likely, and under these, temperatures taking a bit of a dip. It is going to be a bit of a fresh start first thing on Saturday morning for some of us. If we take a closer look at what we can expect first thing tomorrow morning then, and like I said, across parts of north-northwestern Scotland in particular, the showers are going to be pretty frequent. Some hail, some thunder possible here, and continuing as we go through the day. Even some sleet or snow perhaps over the highest peaks of the Scottish mountains. Further east, over eastern parts of Scotland, northeast England, a mostly dry picture here. A few showery outbreaks for Northern Ireland, and then across central, southern parts of England and Wales, we are going to have a front pushing its way southwards as we go through the day. It's not bringing a huge amount of rain, but it will bring some showery bursts. Eventually, that is going to clear away, with things turning a bit drier and perhaps even a bit sunnier across much of England and Wales as we go through tomorrow afternoon. Even some sunny spells developing across parts of Northern Ireland Ireland and Scotland, but still quite a few showers here, and all the time these could bring some hail and some thunder. Temperatures are looking similar to today. It is going to be a bit blustery at times and feeling a bit fresh for early June. As we go through tomorrow evening, we are going to see more showery rain across parts of Scotland, but drier further south, and with more clear skies, again, it could be another chilly, perhaps even fresh start on Sunday morning. More showery rain to come as we go through the end of the weekend and into the beginning of next week. Bye-bye.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes, she could have said Storm. You made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
It went everywhere. Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different. Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back, 5:49. We're on the final furlong. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News. Now, England manager Gareth Southgate had to make some tough calls ahead of picking his final 26-man squad for the Euros. Jack Grealish, James Maddison, Harry Maguire and Everton's Jared Branthwaite were some of the big names axed from his squad. So how confident should we be ahead of the big tourney? Well, joining me now is the legendary football writer Harry Harris. Harry, welcome to the show. Always an absolute pleasure. Let's start with Grealish. I mean, I've got to say, you know, when we kind of 1-1 against Serbia with 10 minutes to go and I've had a few jars in the pub, I want Grealish on the bench to come on. Am I wrong?
Well, I think if Gareth Southgate wins the Euros, he's a genius, and we've all got it wrong. But for me, I think they'd have a better chance with Grealish than without him. I think he offers something completely different. I think he wins so many free kicks, and we have so many good free kick takers. That I think it is a big failure not to have taken him, certainly.
What do you think's gone against him? Is it his form? He wasn't getting a lot of games with Man City, or is it perhaps, you know, he's a bit old school, he's a bit Gazza, he's a bit of a boozer?
Well, whether he's got a refuelling problem, I'm not quite so sure about that. He did look as though he did after City won the treble, of course, but no, I think Gareth Southgate's gone very much on form, which is unusual for him. He's usually very loyal. He axed Marcus Rashford even before this selection because the fact that he and Grealish have played so little or not produced as much as they could. And there are some exciting young talents in the squad. You know, once again, under Southgate, England have an exceptionally gifted group of players. They should do very well, but unfortunately, I don't think they will.
OK, Harry Harris, we have to leave it there. Very short blast, but no doubt we're coming back to you before the tournament and during. Always a pleasure. And let's hear more now from the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer. He spent the day unveiling his party's housing commitments, but he also criticised Prime Minister Rishi Sunak for leaving D-Day early.
I was in Normandy yesterday for the D-Day commemorations, and early yesterday, just before the event, I went down just to look at the beaches where those young men and women ran up on D-Day, and I found that very humbling, just to think of the bravery. They were under fire as they came ashore, and then obviously during the course of yesterday met many veterans, usually in their late 90s, who'd made it back to Normandy, some of them for the first time, almost all of them in wheelchairs, and I was able to say thank you to them on behalf of the Labour Party, also on behalf of my children who live freely because of their actions and the actions of their fallen comrades. That was really humbling. It was really important to me. It was a privilege to be there, and Rishi Sunak will have to answer for his choice. For me, there was only one choice, which was to be there, to pay my respects, to say thank you, and to have the opportunity to speak to those veterans.
But sorry, was the apology, does it draw a line under it?
Well, he has to answer his own actions, but, you know, those veterans had made the most incredible effort to be there. Most of them, that was physically difficult to get there. It had taken them days to get there. Emotionally, it was difficult for some of them because they hadn't been back. And I was really struck by the fact that when the King arrived, many of them in their wheelchairs, you could see the effort they were putting in to try to get out of their wheelchair to stand up for the King. And most of them did, even for a few minutes, a few seconds, because it was so hard. And obviously they'll still be making their way back. I thought it was really important for me to be there, to pay my respects to them and those that didn't return, and actually to say thank you. Now, Rishi Sunak will have to answer for his own actions. For me, there was nowhere else I was going to be.
On housing, you're talking about extending an existing mortgage guarantee scheme. That is hardly a game changer for a massive issue.
Oh, this is a game changer. If you're a young couple and you want to have the security of a roof, your own roof over your head, this is a game changer, because many of those people, let's say a young couple, both on a reasonable wage, will be paying a fortune in rent, and because of that they can't afford to save for a deposit. And if you don't have a parent who can help you out, that means you're never going to get on the housing ladder. So this will be a game changer for them, which is lower deposit housing, which means they can get that chance to have a roof over their head. And when I was growing up, although we didn't have a lot of money, the fact that we owned our own house gave me a secure base camp, and I want to make sure that we give that to the next generation.
Well, that's it from me now. Now, up next, Michelle Dewberry, 6 till 7. Then I'm back at 7 o'clock for Vote 24. The people decide. We'll have all the build-up to that big TV debate later on. But before all of that, it's your weather with Alex Burkin. I'll see you at 7.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again. Here's your latest GB News weather update brought to you by the Met Office. As we head ever closer to the weekend, it is going to be a bit showery for some of us, but there will be some bright or sunny spells around. The showery theme is due to an area of low pressure just to the north-northeast of us. This is dragging in some air from the northwest, which means it is also feeling a little fresh at times too. There are some various features making their way southeastwards as we go through today, and these will bring the focus for some showery bursts of rain, but nonetheless many of us likely to see a few spots of rain at times, particularly towards the north and west. Here the showers are going to be most frequent. However, further east, some clear skies are quite likely, and under these, temperatures taking a bit of a dip. It is going to be a bit of a fresh start first thing on Saturday morning for some of us. If we take a closer look at what we can expect first thing tomorrow morning then, and like I said, across parts of northwestern Scotland in particular, the showers are going to be pretty frequent. Some hail, some thunder possible here, and continuing as we go through the day. Even some sleet or snow perhaps over the highest peaks of the Scottish mountains. Further east, over eastern parts of Scotland, northeast England, a mostly dry picture here. A few showery outbreaks for Northern Ireland, and then across central southern parts of England and Wales, we are going to have a front pushing its way southwards as we go through the day. It's not bringing a huge amount of rain, but it will bring some showery bursts. Eventually that is going to clear away, with things turning a bit drier and perhaps even a bit sunnier across much of England and Wales as we go through tomorrow afternoon. Even some sunny spells developing across parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland, but still quite a few showers here, and all the time these could bring some hail and some thunder. Temperatures are looking similar to today. It is going to be a bit blustery at times and feeling a bit fresh for early June. As we go through tomorrow evening, we are going to see more showery rain across parts of Scotland, but drier further south, and with more clear skies. Again, it could be another chilly, perhaps even fresh start on Sunday morning. More showery rain to come as we go through the end of the weekend and into the beginning of next week. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good evening, I'm Johnny Ratton. Long delays on a couple of stretches of the M1 tonight. First of all, as you head north through Derbyshire after a collision involving 3 lorries and the